But unfortunately, you're playing Magnus Carlsen, and he is a marathon man.
Whoa! Magnus Carlsen lost some time! Are you kidding me?
A big threat. This is getting crazy. Where is the checkmate coming in? Do you just...
There we go.
Oh,
What?
what a finish! That was sick from Alireza.
He's missed it!
Oh
He's
my
missed
God.
that 3.
Lights out. This is absolutely insane.
Oh,
Wow, Jose.
what a move!
And just before he reacts, he gets the dub.
Is a massive threat.
Over.
There we go. Vincent Keymer wins Division 2.
Rock with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again.
We see a checkmating pattern of it. And the youngsters have struck back.
Oh! He won
wait.
for me!
Unbelievable Armageddon. Oh my God.
Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat.
Magnus has blundered.
It's completely winning for Firouzja now.
Wow, don't try this at home.
It comes down to this.
Whoa, Robert,
Oh.
a sacrifice.
What a comeback from the champ.
Hello and welcome everyone. Over the last 2 days, 56 players have earned their spot over the 3 divisions. Today, we kick off Division Play of the Chess.com Classic. I'm going to be your host, International Master Tanya Sachdev here. Alongside me, my good friend, the incredibly strong Grandmaster David Howell. David, we all know, you said it on Twitter, that this is your favorite tournament, the Champions Chess Tour. What are you most excited about today?
Well, of course, commentating with you, Tanya. And as you mentioned, this is the highlight of the calendar for me, the Champions Chess Tour, all of these events. It's just the best players in the world playing one of my favorite time formats. Rapid chess guarantees the thrills, the spills, and it's going to be a lot of fun. That's guaranteed. Magnus Carlsen joins the fray as well. Just a bit of a bonus.
We've got the 3 players who already booked their spot in Division 1 with their performance in the Chessable Masters, who will be entering the Players Arena today. And as we said, the Chessable Masters in the books. Magnus Carlsen won that one. He did his thing there. We are in the second event of the Champions Chess Tour 2024 with the Chess.com Classic. And then mark your calendars for all the upcoming events. The third one takes place in July. And then finally moving on in September to the final regular event. That will be the 4th event. And all of this, David, leads up to the season end final, the in-person final in December. That's the big goal.
That's the big goal. That's what we're here for. The players, they know it's a long, long season, but every game matters. If you win Division 1 this time, you're there. If you gain enough tour points, you're there. So plenty to play for, Tanya, plenty on the line, and that brings the most exciting chess.
And we had so much excitement already in the Chess.com Classic over the last 2 days. Dramatic chess in the Swiss and the Plains. It was blunders and brilliancies. We had Armageddon and mass slips. A day of some shocking upsets, hits and misses. Day 2 had us on the edge of our seats.
It's day 2 of the Chess.com Classic. The more I'm looking at this, the more I feel really nervous about Maxime's position. The computer just announced mate in 12, by the way. That doesn't happen that often, but I had this mate in 12. Wow. Maxime shaking his head. Ivic is like, I'll take it. By the way, I think White can just take a draw here if you want. He does it. Rook e7 before I can highlight it. He's just going to check his way into victory, sending Fabiano Caruana to d2. Velimir Ivic, let the name be known. Uh-oh, opening the diagonal. And that's the kind of thing that can go wrong. Knight f1 check and then rook c2. Is Jan going to find it? Oh my God. What a heartbreaking game for Sam Sebian. Is it mate or what? Oh, rook. Wait, where's the win?
Rook d.
He didn't see it. Obviously, Wesley So got away with one here. This is going to end in a draw. The king just comes in. This is a good old-fashioned family fun. Block with the rook. This is the bridge technique. It's over. Wait, what's going on?
Ooh.
F4? Oh my God! If Wesley So holds a draw again from a lost endgame, I'm going to lose my mind. Serrana is pissed, as he should be. Alexei played better chess today between the 2 players. Wesley would be the first to admit that, and Serrana finds the tactic. Amazing, brilliant chess. Everything falls. Wesley So will be headed to Division 2, and Alexei Serrana gets the job done in Armageddon. There you have it. Division 1 is going to be fun.
And the day did belong to Velimir the Victorious, evicting Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and the world number 2 Fabiano Caruana on his path to Division 1. And David, he plays against Magnus Carlsen today, the world number 1. What does he need to do today to make you feel that he's got his chances to go all the way?
Oh, it's going to be tough for Ivic. So many household names here in Division 1, including Magnus Carlsen, his opponent, of course, but he just has to channel Ivic. The energy with which he approached yesterday, he ran the gauntlet. He defeated Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Fabiano Caruana. If you can do that, you can do anything. So he has to believe that's first and foremost, and he has to make sure that Magnus Carlsen doesn't start strong. Magnus is a hard one to stop with the wind behind his sails. So for Ivic, as an underdog, he's got to use that as a superpower.
Eat, sleep, win, repeat does seem to be Magnus Carlsen's mantra in the Champions Chess Tour. Can Velimir Ivic stop him in his path? In the very, very first day, it's not something that we would see often, but David, we've got such juicy matchups all along and so much on the line for these players. It's, of course, the winner gets that big ticket, the golden ticket to the season end final. But there's also a path to the finals with the tour standings, the very important tour standings. It will be the 4 winners of the regular event, as well as the remaining spots will go to the leaderboard, the players with the highest number of points, the highest number of tour points. And let's take a look at our tour standings, brought to us by Julius Baer, the official wealth management partner of the Champions Chess Tour. We see there, right at the top, no surprises, Magnus Carlsen already punched his way. So, David, 7 spots remaining for that season and final. What are we expecting from this, and how critical are these tour points for the players?
Well, money, of course, playing a big factor here. The players want to grab as much cash as they can, but the tour points equally important. Every single game matters, even as far down as Division 3 here. As you mentioned, spots still available. Actually, players not in Division 1 this time, they'll be hoping that Magnus wins again, opening up a further spot potentially to those tour finals. But many of the top players there, they're in Division 1 this time. They've got their lives on the line, the points on the line, and a lot to play for.
A lot to play for, and it is that big ticket to the season and final. And we've got our tour standings there by Julius Baer, our founding partners of the Champions Chess Tour. We, of course, thank them for their continued support of the tour. And David, in just a few moments from now, we will have the players stepping into the playing arena. We've got our big quarterfinals day coming up. But the players have already played some chess today. And it was in the Grand Chess Tour. We've already had 3 of the players who will be fighting in Division 1. Magnus Carlsen, Vincent Keymer, Jan-Krzysztof Duda. They've already had a big day of chess in the Grand Chess Tour.
That's right, they've been battling it out for several hours already, playing multiple rapid games over the board. This is Vincent Keymer earlier in action. Magnus, he was one of the start players there, but just stamina is so impressive here, Tanya. Can they keep it up? That's the big question. Or can the fresher players who weren't in action earlier today take advantage of tiredness? The players, just this hunger, the thirst for chess, it's impressive.
We see Jan-Krzysztof Duda that he also eliminated 2 big, well, at least kicked them out to Division 2 in the plains, taking down Daniel Dubov on his way to Division 1. And there we see the world #1. He will be in the arena in just a few moments. David, you pointed out, and Magnus Carlsen is ready to go. He's ready to rock and roll in the Chess.com Classic. David, it's also a time control with 10 minutes in a 2-second increment. Adjusting to this new time format, you've had a full day of chess. You already mentioned the fatigue factor. Is that something that Velimir Ivic can look at counting on to get his early win against Magnus?
Definitely. I think Ivic will look at the fact that Magnus will have had these long games and already today, and Ivic will take confidence from that. I've been there myself. I've played tournaments and then gone online afterwards, had these long blitz, rapid marathons, and it is exhausting. So Magnus, he's a marathon man. I've said that before. He's superhuman almost, but it's not going to be easy. I think that's definitely going to add an extra flavor to this match. And Ivic there, I mentioned yesterday to Danny, I love that clock behind him. So focused as well. He should take heart from his results over the last few days.
And that is the spotlight stealer so far of the Chess.com Classic. He plays against the world #1, and look at his path into Division 1 in the plains. Some huge wins against some of the best players in the world, including Andreiken, including Grischuk, and then such a fantastic performance in Division 1. But David, he needed a bit of luck there to get through, especially against the Frenchman with 3 names.
That's right, Ivic did profit from a mouse slip from Vachier-Lagrave in a decisive game. If that game had only been drawn, then Ivic would have been eliminated. But they say you make your own luck in chess, and Ivic certainly did that. He was slightly better in the position where Vachier-Lagrave mouse slipped. So luck or no luck, either way, he's here. He's in Division 1, and he's going to be desperate to continue making his impression here. A real breakthrough event for him.
And he's actually going to need to make his own luck on the chessboard today as he plays against the world number 1. And of course, we've also got other 3 big matchups, and one of them that catches my attention is another clash of generation. It is the 17-year-old Denis Lazavik taking on the 2 times World Championship challenger, who was very close to making it to his 3rd World Championship match in the recently concluded candidates, Jan Nepomniachtchi. It's Jan versus Denis. What do you expect in this one, David?
Oh, this one is tough to call. Jan Nepomniachtchi is so impressive. We saw his candidates event. Yes, he didn't qualify ultimately, but he was unbeaten. He seems to bring his best chess in the biggest moments, and he's a man in form. Supremely well prepared, fantastic openings, fantastic speed, intuition. Then again, he's playing a youngster, and a youngster on a bit of a streak who loves the Champions Chess Tour almost as much as we do, Tanya. Denis Lazavik tends to just show his best in this event. And here's the head-to-head. They've only faced each other once, actually, in rapid chess, either over the board or online. 1 win for Jan Nepomniachtchi, but I don't think this is going to be as straightforward as it might look on paper.
Lazavik breaking all records in the Champions Chess Tour 23 season, becoming the youngest player to make it to that season end final. So impressive. And he takes on one of the big heavy hitters, the stalwart Jan Nepomniachtchi today. Not so many, well, head-to-head scores, not so many matches between these 2 players. So it's going to be a fresh fight. And David, what's been so impressive so far in the tour, in the Chess.com Classic, has been that the players who are playing in the candidates, we're seeing some exceptional preparation by them as well. Are you expecting some more of that today, bringing in that candidates preparation?
I hope so. I'm a big chess fan. I'm a big chess nerd. I love seeing the opening novelties, the weapons that have been stored up their sleeve for ages. Just the creative ideas of these really elite players. And we heard it from Fabiano Caruana. He was using his candidates prep. This is how much it means to the players. Same for Jan Nepomniachtchi. He wants this tournament. He wants the win. Yeah, long live those opening surprises.
We love them. And with just 10 minutes with a 2-second increment, bringing in that early opening novelty, forcing your opponent into a bit of a think tank early on, and forcing them to use those critical minutes can be so useful with just a few seconds on the clock. We've seen what happens on the screen. We've seen the big mass slips. Of course, we're looking forward to seeing some incredible novelties being played at. And of course, we've got 2 other incredible players fighting it out as Jan Duda takes on Alireza Firouzja. 2 extremely exciting players, 2 very sensational players. And Alireza, Duda, what can we expect from this? When it's the clash of, I don't know, I feel like these 2 players, cunning as a fox. Duda showing some impressive form, taking down Dubov, taking down Levon Aronian on his way through. And of course, Alireza as well. What do you think? Is this a clash of, well, I don't want to say clash of styles, because to me it looks like very similar, their approach to chess, David.
That's right. It's fire meeting fire, and Firouzja, he pretty much guarantees there's never a boring game in sight. His games are more often than not just decisive, and here we see their head-to-head 6-3 in Duda's favor. That might surprise a few fans back home, but yesterday we saw Duda just demolish Daniil Dubov and then Levon Aronian, 2 of the kind of mainstays of top level rapid chess. And Duda here, another head-to-head. That's one thing I noticed, Tanya. He thrives against players with a similar style to himself. He's so calm, so calculated, and maybe he has a few more layers to his game, Duda. The slightly older player here as well, so a bit of experience on his side. This was going to be fun to watch. I think we're both excited about this one.
The dangerous dude in front of us, Jan Duda. He's also playing in the Grand Chess Tour, so how much of a factor fatigue and energy will be, we will find out soon. But it's got to be a huge confidence boost for this Polish Grandmaster, having punched his ticket to Division 1 by taking down Daniil Dubov and Levon Aronian in the plains. It's going to be a big fight. And as you said, similar styles. What's going to be the decisive factor, the key area in this matchup, David?
Ooh, it's tough. Nerves always play a factor. You mentioned the time limit. It might just be who's better on the mouse this specific day, whose bullet skills are better. Also, we mentioned earlier the Grand Chess Tour, another event. Duda is also present, playing there. So will fatigue eventually set in? He was on fire in the Champions Chess Tour in the Chess.com Classic yesterday evening. for him. But these things build up, and it's not going to be easy. Maybe the longer the match goes, the more Firouzja might become a favorite.
Duda in form, but is there any player who's better on the mouse than Alireza Firouzja? It's going to be quite a lot of fire on the board. Let's remind everyone of our format of division play. This is the Chess.com Classic. It will be a best of 4 games in the quarterfinals bracket. The players start with 10 minutes and a 2-second increment per move, which is basically nothing. We've seen how much nerves play a role, how many mouse slips happen. You just don't have enough time to accumulate with any increment. And then we've got 2.5 points wins the match. That's the minimum score you need to round up the match. The winners go through to the semifinals and the losers go down to a losers round 1. So it is a double elimination bracket. You've got 2 lives and we might even see Armageddon. Are you expecting any Armageddons today, David?
I'm not sure what I'm expecting, Tanya. It's always full of surprises, these rounds, especially early on. But I'm hoping for Armageddon. The more chess, the better. And Armageddon is the perfect recipe for a real fight. Here we see Vincent Keymer against Alexei Sarana, 2 really impressive players. Vincent in action, of course, in that other tournament. And Alexei Sarana yesterday knocking down Wesley So to Division 2. So clearly, if you can do that, you're bang in form. Another fun matchup to watch.
Wesley So was the runners-up in Champions Chess Star season 2023, losing the finals to Magnus Carlsen. And what a player, considered one of the hardest to beat, Alexei Sarana, taking him down. And convincingly so. He could have wrapped up the match quicker than he did. And it just felt like he was the more dominating player. But the most dominating player of them all, Magnus Carlsen, he will be taking on Vachier-Lagrave. Ivic, a fight to see. It is the underdog playing against the strongest player. But if you love the story of an underdog, then David, Champions Chess Star has to be the tournament. We've seen such breakout performances. And will this be Vachier's day?
It could well be. Velimir Ivic is only 21 years old, so maybe not as young as some of those Indian prodigies that you've got out there, Tanya. Not as young as the likes of Gukesh, but still kind of in the early days of his chess career. This is going to be a great learning experience for him and potentially a big breakthrough, as you mentioned, if he can get the result. Magnus, though, does start with the white pieces. Magnus looks fresh, and Magnus, normally regarded as a slow starter, maybe having played those games earlier in the day in the Grand Chess Tour, will feel now a bit warmed up. So Ivic needs to survive the opening. You just got to take it step by step. It's a cliche, survive move by move, and you might get your chance a bit later. We see the Sicilian defense not backing down. Nothing too solid here. Tanya, this is going to be a fun game to follow.
Game 1 of Division 1 is officially underway at the Chess.com Classic. It starts with the knight off, so promises to be a fun fight already. And Magnus with the bishop e2 approach, slightly cagey early in the start.
Yeah, slightly cagey. As you mentioned, the white bishop just sliding to e2 here. It does signal that white might just castle on the king side. There we go. The white king slides across, and no opposite side castling, no tactical melee here, with both sides just punting pawns down the board, throwing them forward, and kind of with careless abandon. Here it's more positional, so we expect Magnus to maybe adopt the Karpov approach, put a bishop on e3. Magnus loves putting a pawn on a4, a5. First he starts with a rook to e1. This one, it definitely feels like Magnus is trying to get a position, as they say. He's playing an underdog, a lower rated player. He wants to avoid any kind of opening debate. He just wants to get the pieces on good squares and play chess. Interesting, Tanya. I've seen him kind of really work these in his favor, Magnus Carlsen. So I'm inclined to say it's a good strategy as the higher rated player, just to get a maneuvering battle. What do you think?
I agree with you. And it's, as you said, you play a long middle game. You just try to keep all the pieces on the board and you're trying to get a strategic fight and count on those precious seconds and minutes when you have to make the critical decision. I saw the feature chat earlier which said Magnus looking sharp. And David, how used to have we gotten seeing Magnus just appear for these Champions Chess Star tournaments looking like he's just gotten out of bed. He's just woken up. He gets a meal. He's in chill mode. But this is a different Magnus that we're seeing right now. He means business in this one.
Yeah, looking slick, looking sharp. I mean, whether he's just woken up, whether he's been up for hours, he seems to win anyway. It doesn't seem to impact his play. That's the crazy thing, Tanya. Looks can be deceiving. And Magnus, yeah, I mean, just those 3 rapid games he had earlier. He just finished a game against Anish Giri about an hour ago over the board, straight back into action. Like you say, if you feel good, you tend to play good, and that's the main thing. But right now, early days in this Sicilian Najdorf, lots of maneuvering ahead. White's knight is likely going back to f1 into e3 and potentially aiming for the key d5 outpost. But yeah, this is going to promise to be a long strategic battle, as you mentioned. So maybe we zoom out. Other games have also started. Let's check out that bird's eye view.
Let's do it. Let's get a quick update on all the openings. This one's going to be a fight about that key central square, that d5 square that you pointed out. Black always trying to get in a break. Meanwhile, Magnus trying to get all his pieces to that central square. That's the top left board that we see. We're going to see some maneuvering in that one. But what catches my attention is what on earth is going on in Denis Lazavik versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. The h-pawn and the g-pawn down the board. And to me, this reminds me so much of what we saw in the candidates by Jan. David, was it the last round against Fabi?
That's right. Very, very similar stuff. It's a slightly different branch of the Queen's Gambit declined. But Jan, he was taking risks. You mentioned that game. You referenced Caruana against Nepomniachtchi. Kind of must-win situation for both players. That's really rare at the top level where both players needed to win. With Black, of course, it's slightly harder to create that imbalance. But Jan, he channeled that energy into this game. And just like that one, there's a bishop on b4. Just like that one, you're recognizing the patterns. I love it, Tanya. Throwing the pawns down the board, trying to trap this bishop. If the pawn steps down to h4, this white bishop would have been caught in a net. So Denis gives it some space. Do you feel, Tanya, that he's also trying to play the opponent, Denis Lazavik, known for preferring maybe quieter positions? Do you think that's on Jan's mind right now?
And this is something that we brought up time and time again, especially in the last season. How Denis Lazavik, he's such a strategic player, and that's what sets him apart from, well, his other 17-year-old contemporaries, where we see a very different approach, a positional, a more solid approach by him, incredible endgame play by him. And Jan here clearly trying to create chaos right out of the opening. Very ambitious play by Black in this one. And David, that's often a double-edged sword because you've committed so much on the king side, and that begs the question to be asked, what are you going to do about your own king, which right now is stuck in the center?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. I wish I had the answer there, Tanya. If I had the answer, I'd probably be playing where Jan is right now. Wow, he doesn't even care about the black king stranded in the center. He's going straight for the white king, which is also stranded for now. d4, big threat of capturing, unleashing an attack against white's bishop. Ooh, this is the most ambitious play I've seen with the black pieces against the queen's gambit for a long, long time, I've got to say. What do you think, Tanya? Is he going to block here, Denis Lazavik? Does he even have a choice? Opening the center feels double-edged. It's either very good or very bad. Tough choices already, and the clock playing a factor. We need to. Ooh.
What a position we've got right out of the opening in this one. And you mentioned it right now. Jan Nepomniachtchi, just under 9 minutes. He's the one who's blitzing out the moves. And Denis keeps his king flexible with that last move, not only lining up against Jan's center king, but also eyeing perhaps a queenside castle, although would be very tempting to put that king to safety on the king side. I like this move. And Jan blocks the e-file, blocks any checks in it with a developing move. The speed, does it seem to imply that Jan is still in some sort of preparation here, David?
Maybe, although Jan is maybe one of the hardest players to read. He's a bit of a bluffer, or he has been known in the past to bluff, just to continue playing fast, even if he's not completely in his preparation any longer. And there we see, at least very briefly, a question mark appear from the computer, not approving of Jan's decision. I have a feeling Jan's actually on his own, but he's trying to scare his younger opponent. And in rapid chess, we've seen it on multiple occasions. Having that extra minute or two towards the critical moments, maybe by move 30, move 40, that can be decisive. So Jan, I think he's playing a practical game more than anything. But Tanya, we talked about the king. This is definitely the most exciting game of these early winners quarterfinals, because it's just about this king. I have no idea where it wants to hide. Nowhere looks safe. This looks really terrifying for Jan Nepomniachtchi. It's
fire on the board and allow Denis to jump in with that knight from d2 to e4, eyeing the dark squares around the king, hitting that g5 pawn. Things start to look incredibly scary for black. And David, if I was facing this position with the black pieces, I would think about getting rid of that knight. We know how strong an attacker the knight can be. Bishop takes knight, could that be on Jan's radar? It does give away the bishop pair.
does give away the bishop pair. It's a very open position, and you can imagine white's bishops raking across the board. Look how strong this piece is. A real assassin, a sniper from afar. But I agree, Tanya. Maybe there's more pressing concerns than the long-term bishop pair. And there we go. You're right. It's more about timing here. You save yourself a move, potentially. At least now your bishop is no longer pinned. And I wouldn't be surprised to see black just get the queen out the way and try to castle on the long side. I say that through gritted teeth because, I mean, where on earth is the king going to be safe? If you castle long, you might just get checkmated as well on the open c file. There's no way you're going to shuffle over to the corner. Yeah, you definitely can't go kingside either. It's the million-dollar question. Never going to be answered. Queen d5, though, is on the board. The most natural move. But what next? I'm expecting Denis to just centralize one of the rooks.
And the bar keeps creeping up. Denis Lazavik with at least what looks like, according to the engine evaluation, a close to a winning advantage. And look at the speed that Denis keeps on with the board. He sidesteps any pins along the d file, whether it was the rook coming onto d8 or a long castle. With the same idea, he's centralizing his queen, freeing up the bishop, also lining it up with the idea of the bishop stepping onto e4. That queen on d5, centralized, but also exposed. I think Jan Nepomniachtchi, this is backfiring for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's either going to survive and do okay in an endgame, or he's just getting checkmated. There's nothing in between right now. It's very high risk. Not even high reward chess. It's high risk and maybe low reward chess here. You might survive to a slightly worse endgame. I think he just needs to try and beg for the queen trade. Because if queens are on, then it's clearly only the black king who's going to get mated. If a white queen ever lands on this diagonal, and then it's going to be, even this diagonal, then it's going to be checkmate. But not quite getting there yet, Tanya. Denis wisely keeping the queens on, and he's actually ahead on time now, the youngster. Big surprise on the table.
Super fast there by Denis. He wants to go for checkmate. He's got a clear idea. A small but a big threat. Bishop takes knight is incoming, so it needs to be stopped. Also, the rook from f1 can move to d1, attacking the queen, coming into the game with tempo. David, the most natural move would be to play a move like knight e5, attacking the queen, but that would run into a big check on the c file.
Yeah, big check on the c file. Also, pawns would be dropping in the near future. Bishop takes b7. This is... Look at Jan on the camera. He's reacting already. He looked to the side, kind of grimaced, and he's like, oh, I've messed this up, but I'm going to try and keep a poker face. Sip some tea as well. That's always a telltale sign, Tanya. When players sip their water, they are either doing very well or they're trying to hide and bury their emotions. But this one, I mean, the bar has just gone crazy through the roof. Like you said, rook c1, bishop takes c6, all of it. Kind of all roads lead to Rome at this point, and Rome here being that black king. It's terrible.
This has all the makings of just ending up being a big miniature upset. Denis Lazavik, he's done everything right. Can he get the ball at the back of the net? Can he finish the job? Well, not just Denis, but Jan has started with his ambitious play here. And I saw the featured chat there recommending, helping us there, David. With a move like g4, it might be time for Jan to hit the chaos button because you can't just sit in this position as black.
Yeah, I like it. Thanks to our chat out there. The problem is after g4, there might be ideas like the white queen stepping forward in the near future. Maybe you just take that pawn off the board first, and you do free up the f4 square for the white queen. I agree. If you can press the chaos button, at least try to confuse your opponent. You might stand a chance, but I think Jan here, he's doomed either way. He does play your move knight e5. I agree. It might be the best shot, even if it does gambit a pawn, but at least now you've closed the long diagonal. The black king might try to shuffle towards the corner. And I say it again, reluctantly, because I think he's simply lost here in multiple ways. But Jan, yeah, it's self-inflicted. Denis hasn't actually had to do anything special. We sometimes say Denis the Menace, Tanya, like just confusing his opponents, outmaneuvering his opponents. Here, he's just reacted, and Jan has done the hard work for him. It feels like Black's suffering due to the fact he was overambitious in the opening.
And it also feels like we've been calling out all of the last few moves that have been played on the board, but the bar keeps going up. It feels like it's just the most natural moves seem to be the one that make black's position worse. Look at that. The black king lined up with the black queen in the center of the board, the d file. White is one move away. Rook d1 would be a killer move, but right now that queen on f3 is hanging with a check. Is there a direct blow, a knockout blow in this position, David?
There must be, Tanya. I don't see it yet, but there must be. Even an endgame, even if you were to trade queens, you're probably just winning on the spot due to multiple attacks. You might just pick up a few pawns, but I'm wondering, do you just drop back the white queen? Do you kind of plant her forward into f6, maybe going in?
Can I just say, Queen E3 is such a David Howell move to make. You know, you just go into this endgame, play for this long grind like a grandmaster, but Dennis has other plans.
Yeah, that's again why it's him there playing, not me. He's younger, faster, more energetic, more ambitious, and he doesn't want to settle for an extra pawn in an endgame. He wants to checkmate, and I think he's going to get there. Jan shaking his head again on the camera, visible now, his disgust with his position. He takes a bishop, but ooh, where's the killer blow, Tanya? Oh, just bishop takes e5, check incoming, rooks galore, all hanging now.
And you can't go bishop d5. Rook c7 is game over. Rook c7 is a massive threat on the board, just with a checkmate on e7.
Yeah, good spot. I mean, I was looking for the material, but why bother with that? Bishop to c4. I mean, check seems to do the business, seems to win immediately on the spot. I'm sure there's multiple ways. Queen to d6 looks strong. Dennis finds another one. Yeah, I think we'll see resigns. And our first result of Division 1 any moment now. Wow. Demolition job, Tanya.
Absolute destruction. And Jan Nepomniachtchi throws in the towel. He resigns. Denis Lazavik gets the first win. It was a miniature. What a show by Denis. What a start by him. If you love the underdog story, you've got to be rooting for Denis. And what a start, David, that is.
Yeah, it's the changing of the guard, the youngsters here. Denis really stamping his authority, but Jan was overambitious in the opening and was duly punished. So I'm expecting a very different Jan Nepomniachtchi in the next set of games, especially when he has the white pieces. In the meantime, there's games going on elsewhere. We see that Magnus Carlsen game in the top left of this bird's eye view, the beautiful rainbow board configuration here. Magnus has a smaller kind of enduring advantage there with a better pawn structure. Bottom left looks like a really tense maneuvering game, relatively symmetrical. But Tanya, I want to take us over to Vincent Keymer against Alexei Serrano because firstly, I see a bar that's going a bit crazy. I also see an open white king, an energetic black queen. What do you make of this this position in front of us?
I'm still getting over what we just saw on the Denis board. I mean, what was that? That just finished before it even started. And Jan Nepomniachtchi just goes down and he's playing catch up to the 17-year-old Denis. What a start we've had to Division 1. And David, love that you've got us to this game. Look at the position that we have. And it looks like Vincent might be on his way to also taking the lead in his match. Like you mentioned, the g4 pawn, again, ambitious play, but it's not out of attack. You really control some key squares. That's more of a positional move than an attacking move by white in these structures, taking away a key f5 square, a key h5 square.
Yeah, that's a great call, Tanya. It's just because here the difference is piece activity. Yes, black has a beautiful, or looks like a really attractively placed queen, kind of eyeing up some weak spots in the white camp, but any weak spots will be easily guarded by white's rook. White's king is actually really safe, and the black knights are fighting for the same square. Black's pieces as well, the rook, the bishop, the other rook, they're all kind of snoring in bed asleep, while white's bishop is beautiful on this diagonal. White also has a pawn on e5 for space advantage. That being said, the more trades there are, the more I think Alexei Serrano will breathe a sigh of relief. Suddenly his bishop is out, it's woken up, and suddenly his rooks are connected. I could see this turning. I agree, Vincent, big advantage, or at least a really pleasant advantage, but Serrano is so tricky. What do you think, Tanya? Is momentum turning slightly at least?
Well, space advantage seems so nice for white, but when you trade off more pieces, it does dilute. Now, I thought knight g2 traps that black queen, but it does have one square. After falling back, the h3 square, the queen can hide and run away, but it means that white would at least have a repetition if black was to capture with the f-pawn. Back and forth, knight g2, knight f4, but I have a feeling that Vincent wants more from this game. I don't think he's going to be happy with the repetition here. We do see pawn takes bishop on the board. David, be the prophet. Are we going to see a repetition?
No, I think Vincent Keymer is way too ambitious. I mean, I'm no Danya, but I'm looking into the future here and I'm thinking he's getting hungry. He's missed his dinner. You know, he's been playing chess all day out there in Poland at the Grand Chess Tour. He's getting hungry for these pawns right now. And I've got to say, I'm really shocked by Serrano's last move. I thought it was a guarantee that black would have recaptured on e6 with the knight, because white's knight, if you compare them, I mean, simple math here, a knight that can control loads of squares versus a knight that simply cannot move. Why not trade those pieces off on the last turn. But yeah, now black's suffering with a really, really bad piece. And like you said, Tanya, it's actually a recurring theme. Knight g2 later might be even more effective. He's got it up his sleeve. Maybe the professional thing to do would have been to repeat that position once, show your dominance, and then play queen b3. But now Vincent right now, he's banking on a big advantage. This is a very juicy pawn. And likewise, this one on e6. I take my words back, Tanya. Momentum, it was slightly turning back in black's favor, but not anymore. Now it's going the other way.
Knight
Look at
g2?
the bar.
What does he want
Oh.
after knight g2? He wants queen to h6. Is that the point?
Wow. Clinging onto his bishop. It's been given a question mark, this last move. I mean, it does look so shaky. I agree with your instincts here. Feels so wrong for black. The queen is so offside. How to punish? Oh, it's happening. It's happening. Your line.
It's happening. But
wow. F4 for the score.
David, are we going to see a rook left from the third rank going over to h3, trying to trap that queen on h6? Ideas of rook f3 or rook c3, rook h3, screaming out right now from my screen because of the arrows that you marked. I won't lie.
I love it, Tanya. Full board awareness. This black queen is pretty much trapped. The black knight has no good squares. I mean, if you want to be super greedy, you can start snacking, munching on those pawns that we mentioned earlier. But rook f3.
It's happening.
Wow.
It's happening. He's going for the black queen on h6. Rook h3 incoming. Look at that knight on g7 taking away all the squares from the queen. And where do you want to even go with that knight with the e6 pawn hanging? Is black busted here, David?
One word, Tanya. Yes. He is totally over Serrana. Not a piranha in this game. He's really struggling to keep swimming, to keep afloat. Rook to d8. Is it time to win that queen? Is it time to cash in now? I guess black's just going to sacrifice. If rook to h3, maybe the idea is to give up the queen and then to take this bishop on d2. Surely that isn't enough for the material. Maybe you just move the bishop or protect it as well. The attack goes on. The threat is going nowhere. What do you think? Patience here or rush? Get that queen.
And he's up on the clock. That's such a big question because it's so tempting to go in for material right now. But then you ask yourself that where is the queen going? The only way I see black fighting is to push that g pawn to create a square on g6 for the queen to hide. For example, bishop e1 might run into g5. So, David, big question. Is Vincent going to go for rook h3? He doesn't. He goes for an attack with bishop a5, hitting the rook. I kind of like it. I saw the eval bar kind of drop down a bit, but bishop a5, the more I see it, the more I feel that this is tough for black. Rook h3 incoming.
Yeah, still looking very, very strong. Multiple attacks here. A threat to trap the queen, of course. We mentioned that one, but now attacking the rook, gaining a bit of time. I must say I like it. Yes, the eval bar might have dropped slightly, but it's a manageable human position now where it's much more rational. Simple threat. The opponent has to burn time reacting. I was expecting the move b6, but maybe there you win the queen in a better way. There you could also just drop the white bishop back and say, oh, you've softened up the black pawns. So really, really nice move. Vincent looks in control. I don't see any defense for black. I must say, I'm struggling. To d5, he still wants to give up the queen, but now it's a much better version for white, Tanya. There we go. He traps her.
100%. Imagine that black rook on a5 and compare it to that black rook on d2 if Vincent would have gone for the queen on the last move. Definitely feels like a way better version, and we can see that we will see the queen being given up by Serrana here. No squares at all. The g-pawn and the f-pawn taking away once again. Full board control by Vincent. And David, Vincent is such a strong player, but this is his first time playing in Division 1, and there we see it has appeared on the board. And he had a fantastic run in the Chessable Masters. He won Division 2, and he's gotten off to a flying start in this one.
That's right. Vincent was impressive, defeating Levon Aronian in the final of Division 2 last time out. But yeah, he's earned his place in Division 1 and he's continuing to impress. Serrana, European champion right now in Classical, I think in Rapid and in Team Chess. He's no easy customer, but Vincent really proving that he's here to fight. I'm expecting the rook to land on d7 in the very near future. Tanya, maybe we zoom out of this one. We've praised Vincent. I'm going to say he's going to win this game. I think, well, commentator's curse, of course, is the only thing that can stop him now. But let's check out the other games because Magnus Carlsen has assumed a winning advantage right now against Velimir Ivic. Ivic also down to just a few seconds on the clock. What do you think? Is it
We
that
gotta
game
we
go.
gotta go right now. We gotta go right now. Ivic with 5 seconds on the clock. He's hitting Magnus's rook on d6. If Magnus picks up the black rook on c4, Ivic will take the rook on d6. And notice how that bishop on c5 gets pinned to that queen on c4. I still like that position after queen d5 though, David. What are you expecting? Do you think Magnus is going to go for the exchange, or will he keep the pressure on? Just simply sidestep with the rook.
That's a very good question, Tanya. He could also move his rook, and the black rook is almost trapped. It lacks squares. It's severely stranded behind enemy lines here. Magnus does keep his rook intact. I liked your line. Simplify the equation. I think white would have won a pawn in that regard, but he's also eyeing up. There we go. Magnus gets there first. He's eyeing up the f7 pawn and all sorts of mating patterns around the black king. Wow, Ivic loses on time, but it was a lost position nonetheless. Magnus clicking into gear, Tanya.
The clock was least of Ivic's problems in this game. Magnus Carlsen continues to do Magnus things, takes the lead, and he did make it look pretty easy out of the opening. Playing a simple setup out of the knight off, getting that small advantage, controlling the d5 square, but we've got action on. For Ivic, it's been a tough start. We'll see if he can manage to level the score against the world number one. Where do we go to next, David? Your call.
I vote that we go to the game we haven't really explored yet. It's Alireza Firouzja against Duda, because this one was actually really quiet. We mentioned it was super symmetrical, quite dull for most of it, but it's just exploded, Tanya. A question mark on this last move. What's happened there? White, is the exchange up? He actually had multiple pieces attacked on the last turn, but despite his material advantage here, Firouzja is suffering. The white king is so open, the black knight ready to pounce into some beautiful squares. White's king is so loose. This pawn is now up for grabs. Yeah, I think you can go for this because knight h4 was a massive threat. No time for white to go and grab this black rook, which was hanging. What do you make of this? Can white survive?
Literally no time for white. Firouzja is playing this position with his king in the open, the black knight and queen and bishop looking at a combining attack against it with 5-6 seconds on the clock. He pins it. That was a sacrifice. What a move that was, David. Oh my god, the moves are just coming in really quickly. Duda sacrificing piece after piece. First the bishop, now the rook.
Yeah, the white queen was tied down. She needed to keep defending her rook on f3 because there would have been an attack on both of the white rooks. Knight h4 landing now. Rook g2 is coming, and wow, another flag, Tanya.
He flags. Alireza Firouzja, considered one of the fastest players on the planet. He goes down in game one against the king of chaos, Jan Krzysztof Duda, getting that first win. But David, it wasn't about flagging. The position is busted for Alireza.
Position was busted. The white king was doomed. It was about to get checkmated or just huge material losses incoming. So that game, really well played. Duda bang in form this Chess.com Classic tournament. Let's go back to the remaining game, Vincent Keymer against Alexei Sarana, where again the bar rises. It got messy for a while. Vincent's king is a bit open. Watch out for some bishop checks. You've got to be really careful here. Keep your king safe if you can, if you're white, but white still has the queen for rook and bishop advantage. Oh, Tanya, this one's still alive. Alexei fighting well.
It is, because he does have an extra pawn as well. So if we do the math, it's actually quite balanced. You've got a rook, a minor piece, and a pawn against the queen. So that's 9 versus 9 in terms of points. I think it also comes down to king safety. For white, you've got to create threats against the white king. And right now, Vincent trying to keep things under control, and that's been avoided. Well, avoided, I don't know, but it's a blunder, David. What's going on here?
Yeah, this is hard to spot. The blue arrow appears. The computer spotted bishop g5, and there was an attack against the white rook. Suddenly, wow, there's tactics galore. White is counterattacking against the black rook. Not the best, this last move from Sarana. I think there was actually some checks, some tactics for black to gain even more material, but now it's just that imbalance facing off. It's literally just the queen versus the rook and bishop, and the knights kind of balance each other out right now. Can black hold? The problem is black's pawns are a bit loose. The e6 pawn, the h7 pawn isolated. Queen and knight, a really fearsome attacking combo as well. So this one, I'm going to still say it's alive. Look at Vincent's clock, making every move with 2 or 3 seconds left. Tanya, do you think that's going to play a part? Will we see a third player loose on time in this round?
This is going to be so much about the clock. The other games, the positions were busted, but this one is a game for all 3 results, and players are playing on seconds. And I think David, the clock is more important than the board right now. The g4 pawn is so important. So many of us would just push it forward, but it controls the black knight from jumping into the game, controlling that f5 square. So very hard for Vincent to find a winning plan with just 7 seconds on the clock.
That's right. His only winning plan is to get greedy, go grab those pawns. That's what he's trying to do. He's eliminated 1, now 2 black pawns, but his own g4 pawn has fallen. I think he's doing a good job, Tanya, here. The black rook is now less coordinated. And, okay, knight trade, yes or no? You can jump forward with a knight check. He's going for checkmate here. Oh no, he's getting
I can
greedy
feel it.
instead.
I can feel it. There's a blunder incoming. David, with just seconds on the clock, things can go so wrong once black starts checking the white king as well. And it's his chance right now. Can Serrano create a mess? Can he create coordination between his rook and knight against the white king?
That's the big question. I agree, Tanya. A blunder is in the air. Serrano, though, playing again every move with 2-3 seconds left. I love what Vincent's doing. Walking the white king to safety. He'll land on a2. No checks around there. And that's really good blitz kind of bullet skills. He's definitely practiced that one on Title Tuesday. Walk the king as far away from knight forks as possible. That's how you blunder in these positions. And he's maneuvering really nicely with the white queen. At some point, the pawns will start running. The white a pawn might be the winner. But in the meantime, Serrano just keeping the game alive. Oh, shaking his head though.
Because pawns are falling off the board for black one by one. Vincent has picked up all of black's pawns, and that king and knight setup, as you pointed out, so important, as far away from any checks as possible. Also keeping the king on the light squares, a different color than black's bishop there. So very safe, and the pawns are coming down the board for Serrano.
Oh, and there we go. A double attack, a triple attack even, winning a piece at the end, and Serrano resigns. White's queen finally snacked on one of those 3 pieces, and game over. Vincent, not so smooth his conversion technique there, but he eventually gets the W, he gets the win. So important, Tanya, to finish that one off.
And he was the player with the better nerves playing on those seconds. What a game this was. What a conversion this was. How many of us, it's so easy to falter playing, falling into a fork or a trap. But none of that for Vincent Keymer. He takes the lead in his match against Alexei Serrano. Denis Lazavik with the first win. The miniature against Jan Nepomniachtchi gets in the dub as well. Magnus doing Magnus things. The guy is unstoppable. Will Vladimir Ivic be able to level that score? And for Alireza Firouzja, the same question against Jan Krzysztof Duda. David, are you expecting some turnarounds in these upcoming matches as far as the scoreline is concerned?
Definitely. I think some matches may be more likely to turn around than others. It feels like Magnus Carlsen is in top form right now. Most of all, Tanya, I want to celebrate how fighting these players are, how ambitious, aggressive they've been. No draws. The players have forgotten or just don't want to play solid. They've forgotten how. And this one, I think Jan Nepomniachtchi, we just saw in front of us right there, he is the one maybe with the most pressure on his back. He's playing a youngster, but he does get the white pieces. And if he is able to get back in the zone, back to his best, maybe this is where we will see the bounce back, the revenge. But early days, Tanya, just fun games already and so much drama.
Super fun games there. And for Jan Nepomniachtchi, it has been no fun at all. That was an absolute disastrous start for him. He needs to switch it up. He will start with the white pieces. David, it was fire on board. Which player impressed you the most in game 1?
Oof, I'm actually going to go out and say Jan Krzysztof Duda because his position against Firouzja was so level for so long. He was actually fighting for equality, but he got one shot to press the chaos button. He blew it open, sacrificed, and some crazy tactics caught out Firouzja's king. So Duda, for me, has been maybe the player so far from the play-ins now until Division 1. But of course, Magnus was impressive. And here we do see Magnus start with the black pieces as Ivic tries to bounce back. Magnus not reacting yet. Looks like he's typing, maybe talking to one of our arbiters. Maybe, I don't know. Don't know what he's up to, Tanya, but he hasn't realized the game has started yet. E4 on the board. What opening are you predicting? He beats us to it.
Magnus saves me from answering that one, but the fun part is that it's going to be another Sicilian, but it's a Rossolimo, so a more solid strategic approach there by Vladimir going for bishop to b5. Magnus looking at going for the fianchetto with the g6. So far, it's all theory.
Yeah, and it's a very well-known theory, especially to Magnus Carlsen, who's essayed this opening in multiple World Championship matches, most famously against Caruana in 2018. That's where this became a real staple of his diet, of his opening repertoire as black, fighting e4 consistently with this branch of the Sicilian. And a small trade, an exchange on c6 means that black has the bishop pair, but a slightly compromised pawn structure. Normally, Tanya, this means a slightly slower game, right? Some maneuvers ahead.
Absolutely. And it's all about the bishop pair, the pawn structure that you're pointing at. And right now, with that last move, a4 and a5 coming out, taking more space on the queen side by Valimir before he decides to put his king to safety. And also keeping the knight, the queenside knight on b1, flexible for development. It's so important, David, for Valimir to make use the most of his chances in this game with the white pieces. He can't take a slow, stop the bleeding approach. Every white against the world #1 counts.
That's right. And every move counts in this type of position. He definitely doesn't want to take a slower turn, as you say, because against the best players in the world, if it becomes a bit slower, if they can dictate the pace and choose when to switch things up, when to start accelerating, then things backfire very, very quickly. So you definitely don't want to play too safe, play for a draw. Magnus would, I think, take things under his control there. That being said, here, he's gone for the Alpha Zero approach. He's pushed one of his rook's pawns forward, the white pawn to a5. He needs a follow-up. He's pushed a pawn to b3. I mean, Magnus is such an expert in these types of positions. He'll put a knight on d7. Maybe he'll start with a move like bishop e7 or h6, just to cut out white's knight landing on g5. But yeah, no pawn breaks in sight, and that means the position will remain closed for a long time, at least for the foreseeable future. Tanya, it feels like opening battle. Oh, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who has won the opening battle?
It's hard to say because, as you pointed out, the a pawn up the board, it's Alpha Zero against Alpha Magnus. Very tough to bet against Magnus in these formats, but I do like white's position. The bishop coming to b2, the knight jumping onto c4, the e5 pawn being a little tender. It just feels like the next few moves are slightly easier for white to make. So far, I would pick white, David, but seeing who's on the other side of the board, that's not an easy answer.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm biased right now. I've seen Magnus have this exact opening, this type of pawn structure, more times than I can count, more times than I've played chess games probably at this point. But knight back to d7, reacting to the threat on e5. Likewise, I'm expecting bishop to b2, just as you are, and Magnus might defend that with a pawn or with the bishop. What do you say? It looks like the rest of the games have started. This is going to be a slow grind. We'll check back in on Magnus a bit later, maybe.
Let's do it. Let's bring up our bird's eye view and check in with our other boards as the players are playing catch up. We've had 4 decisive games in round 1. So 4 players are trailing currently. And David, there we have it. We've had a look at the top left Magnus board. Valimir there. He's got to try to level the score. What catches your attention? Where do you want to go to next?
Wow, so many quirky openings. Top left, we saw Magnus' Sicilian defense. We saw a Dutch defense by Alireza Firouzja, and we see a Nimzo Indian on the bottom right of our screens. But I'm going to say we have to race over to Jan Nepomniachtchi against Denis Lazavik, because I don't even know what I'm seeing. There is pure chaos on that board. It's a Berlin defense, but the least boring Berlin you will ever see, and white sacrificed a piece.
Whoa!
Look at this, Tanya. There's a battery, though, and an attack against this black knight. Watch out, checkmate in 2 is threatened.
A huge threat, not only queen takes knight, but knight takes bishop coming in with a queen takes pawn checkmate. And that was a piece sacrificed by Jan Nepomniachtchi just when you called in to check in. David, if it's possible, if you can just do a quick action replay of what just happened.
Yeah, we actually saw en passant, everyone's favorite move. We saw pawn to c5 just a couple of moves ago, attacking this white knight. Jan took the pawn en passant as if it just moved 1 square. And after a simple recapture, this is where maybe Denis had missed it. Knight takes c6, a sacrifice, a whole piece here just to deflect the black knight from the d3 square. Now, again, as we mentioned, h7 indirectly attacked and the black knight no longer defending its counterpart. We see a bunch more moves. Bishop f5 from Denis Lazavik, so quick. Knight takes bishop, check. No time to take the white queen. The white queen recaptures a piece, and this is the endgame we're left with. 2 knights against 2 bishops, Tanya. Who are you preferring?
I love the 2 bishops. I love that the game is open. The d6 pawn is an eternal weakness to watch out for. But on the other hand, look at those 2 knights at the center of the board. For Denis, those are stallions right now. Knight d4, knight c4, taking away so many key squares from the bishops to come into play, putting pressure on the b2 pawn. Right now, the f5 bishop is hanging. I'm expecting a retreating move like bishop to d3, trying to come back with a tempo. And I think Denis means to answer it with knight to e5. Tempo for tempo, David.
Yeah, tempo for tempo, dancing knights in the center of the board, dancing queens there almost. But yeah, this is just really hard to evaluate. Normally, as you say, most players would take the bishops, slightly better pawn structure as well for white, but those are long-term factors. Short-term, the knights are active, and Lazavik needs to keep them that way. As soon as you start retreating with the Black Knights, you're worse. You're going to maybe just suffer for the rest of the endgame. So I like your knight e5 move even here, attacking that bishop, or just maybe get those rooks to open files, try to land a knight check, get rid of, trade off one of those bishops. I think Jan's probably only just now in the last couple of moves, Tanya, left his opening preparation. He's only spent a minute. Denis, though, reacting really well, I've got to say, to those really nasty tactical surprises.
But David, we saw that exact storyline, that exact narrative in game one with Jan blitzing himself out to a lost position out of the opening. So it's so hard to say what's really happening with the clock situation. Jan used barely about a minute, a little over a minute to get to this point. A pleasant position. But if Black is able to keep up the activity with the two knights, and we see knight e5 on the board, and look at that. White's got all the pieces on the first rank. The king, rook, the two bishops, and the rook. And look at the Black Knights. They keep jumping forwards. Dancing Knights, you called it, David. I think Black's managed to equalize this endgame without too much trouble.
I agree. Appearances can be deceiving sometimes. Those white pieces are all long-range pieces, the rooks and bishops, so sometimes they do a good job even stuck on their first rank, but right now they really need to wake up, and Black's Knights have been the ones doing their exercise today, their 10,000 steps. They've been dancing around the board, and okay, bishop d2, sneaky tactic. Knight takes b2 though. I guess bishop c3 would win a piece there, Tanya. Wow.
Really nice spot there. And I think you have to continue the line that if you take on d1, at the end of it, David, you don't recapture the d1 knight, but you actually pick up bishop takes d4, and the knight on d1 is trapped behind enemy lines.
Wow, this is looking into the future. Really, really sneaky from Jan Nepomniachtchi. Quite an obvious tactic once you see it. So I don't think Denis Lazavik will blunder by taking this pawn, but yeah, bishop d2 is creative nonetheless. That's not an obvious one for white. So really, really nice play. Jan, if he lands a bishop on c3, nice square, then he might start to stabilize and unravel his pieces. He needs to drive back these two stallions, though, first of all. This is the calm after the storm, Tanya.
There was a traffic jam on the first rank, and now we see a traffic jam on the d file. Bishop c3 would be a really nice consolidating move, and I think that's what Denis is playing against. If you go bishop to c3, he's eyeing that check on e2 with rook to e8, knight e2 would at least neutralize Jan's bishop pair advantage. David, this one looks like it's going to be an endgame grind. Should we move over to some of the other, well, more exciting middle game action that we're witnessing right now?
I approve. Let's do that, Tanya. Let's zoom out now to the bird's eye view. I'm going to let you pick, actually, because I'm torn in two minds. We've got some really tense middle games. Ivic is actually stepping forward, trying to create a mess against Magnus Carlsen. Duda against Alireza Firouzja. It was a Dutch defense, a rare guest at the top level, but an interesting position there. And the Nimzo on the bottom right. What are you picking?
It's so much tension all across the four boards. On that bottom right, we see the central pawns with the face-off. On the Magnus board, that top left board, d5 played, also looking incredibly like a critical moment on that board. And David, I think we've got to go to that one. For Vladimir Ivic, this is such an important moment, such an important round. Can he seize the initiative with that last move, d5 on the board, allowing Black to take that bishop on b2, but attacking Magnus's bishop on e6?
Yeah. Magnus will not get tempted right now. I doubt we'll see him take the bishop on b2, because after d takes e6, Black might temporarily go up a pawn, but Black's pawn structure will be wrecked. It will be ruined after a recapture. The c4 pawn would also drop in the near future. We talked about bishop pairs in the previous game, Tanya. Magnus, he'll be forced to part with one of his, well, probably this bishop, but how to do that? I really love Ivic's last move. I'm surprised the bar says level, because he's been doing everything right. I think Magnus, now slowing down, might have missed this last shot, this counterattack, not reacting to the white bishop being hit, but hitting the black bishop instead. What would you do here, or what moves come to mind?
I would panic here. That would be my reaction for sure in this position. I mean, d5, there are no good squares for the bishop. Also, notice how Ivic has set up his pieces. King on h1, knight on g1, rook on f1. It looks really ugly, but it kind of keeps a lot of things under control for white. But it requires him to get these pieces into the game as well. And I think for Magnus, it's about trying to gain that time. Does he have that time? Pawn takes pawn would be the move that comes to my mind with Black here. Inviting white to recapture with the knight, but I don't believe that's the idea, David. I think Ivic is going to keep the pressure up after pawn takes pawn, simply e takes d5, and Magnus with a blowout move, he goes bishop takes pawn.
Wow, an immediate kind of frown and sit back from Ivic. He had definitely missed that one. Now he's leaning forward. He's frowning again slightly, Velimir Ivic here, missing this last move. I missed it as well, Tanya. I agree. I would have taken that with a pawn, but that's why Magnus is Magnus. He spots the unexpected moves. The bishop, as you said, was trapped anyway, so he's selling it for the highest price. He's trying to sell it for a pawn, and now if white takes back on d5, only then will he take the white bishop, and he'll argue that at least temporarily he's a pawn up, and black's kingside pawn structure hasn't been fractured. So really nice move from Magnus Carlsen. The computer approves, we see that, and I think he's dodged the worst. I still think I would take white's position after simply recapturing, and this pawn will drop as well to the white knight. But Magnus keeping things manageable at least, and ahead in the match. That's a good kind of place to be for him right now. But Ivic needs to move quick. The clock cost him last time, Tanya.
And currently, Magnus is ahead on the clock as well. And I think time, again, will not only on the clock, but on the board cost Ivic as well. We pointed out those three pieces which are stuck on the king side, the knight and the rook especially. Knight on g1, rook on f1. It needs to find itself into the game. Bishop takes pawn really takes care of the situation. And it might have just been the only move. But for Magnus, he's just a pro at finding these only moves that keep him going in the game. So for Ivic, he has to do it all over again. David, should we just zoom out now that Magnus has managed to take care of the business for the time being? But Ivic with a nice move there. Queen b1, does that surprise you?
Ooh, Magnus has actually just sacked a piece. I agree. I was going to say zoom out as well, but Magnus's bishop is now just going to fall off the board in the center. In return, though, he's going to get a wall of pawns. So that position really complicated. We'll check back in on Ivic against Carlsen very shortly. Which game do you have in mind? Which one catches your eye here, Tanya?
Well, let's go and check out what is happening on that bottom left board for Alireza Firouzja. He needs to win at least one game to level the score. And David, we haven't checked in with it yet. Duda, once again, looks like he's the one who's controlling the open files. I like the rook on d1, the rook on c1, but Alireza with better central control there. And what do you make of this? I have to say, first feeling, I like white's position here.
I agree. It feels like Firouzja, it was the theme of his candidates tournament. He was really kind of fast and loose with his king safety. It feels like the black king is definitely more vulnerable than the white king, than its counterpart right now. So it doesn't look like much, but watch out. If the white bishop stays alive, then the black king might be a real target. And all heavy pieces on the board, as you mentioned, especially the rooks. That normally spells danger tactically for the side with a weaker king. So right now, not sure how to guide this towards safety. Firouzja really should be thinking of safety first, but he plays e4. He's just comfortable with his pin, Tanya. He's a braver man than me, I've got to say. Any way for white to take advantage of this? Something on the d file, it feels like.
That's a scary pin to deal with. The knight jumping onto d5, the knight jumping onto b5. The only thing that white needs to watch out for are potential bishop takes pawn, bishop takes h2 tactics at some key moment, winning that rook on d1. Right now, they don't seem to work out. And he stops it forever. He says you're never getting it with that last move, g3.
Yeah, Duda, you can tell his experience. I fully agree with you, Tanya. It would be easy to blunder or forget later about a sudden bishop check, throwing the bishop out the way in tactics. And Duda, you can tell he's played a lot of blitz before. Why not give your king some space, some breathing space on the back rank? No back rank checkmates ever. And also you blunt the effect of this bishop now, the long range piece. So yeah, the center's relatively open, you would say. But it's also blocked in a way, so the white knights maybe later will jump. But right now, rook to c8. And okay, how to react on this hit to the white queen. Do you go forward? Do you go offer a queen trade right now? So many tempting options for Duda, and a bit up on the clock. Feels like no risk for white here. It's definitely white applying the pressure.
I agree. And both these moves that you pointed out are very tempting. I know the one that you want to play, David. It has to be queen b5, grind like a grandmaster, go into that endgame, have control of the open files. But Duda, he wants to keep the pressure on with queen to d5. Also a nice approach here.
Yeah, you know me too well, Tanya. I would have played that without even thinking. Queen's off the board and get into the endgame. A slightly better position, slightly more compact pawns, and no risk, of course. But Duda is a much more ambitious player, and big threats potentially on the d file, as you mentioned. Knight b5 definitely in the air, and black is rather tied up. Black is struggling to find moves. This black rook on the 6th rank is pretty much tied down, defending his bishop forever, or at least the near future. Ooh. feel like in Blitz, this is easier for white to play. I don't know about you. The clock's ticking down slowly but surely. Firouzja, he's
I
going to have to defend
agree.
well.
He has to defend well. He's already down in the scoreline. But David, I want to draw your attention to the Magnus board. And if we zoom out and bring in our bird's eye view, there are big, big developments. And to me, it looks like Velimir could be on his way to score that comeback right now, right here. Take a look at that top left. That's material advantage for Velimir. He's up an exchange right now.
Wow, Magnus Carlsen down on material. And I guess he's got the clock in his favor. Big, big warning signs. This last move given a question mark. I'm not sure what was better. He's activating the white knight. But as you said, Tanya, it's a white rook for a bishop and pawn right now. So white is up. Maybe black can take this pawn on e3. But white can also give a check and recapture one of the black pawns, which is really weak. Yeah, I totally want to discard the evaluation bar. I think this is very much a white advantage. It's only about how big the advantage is. This could shoot off the scales if Magnus isn't careful right now. I agree with you. In practical terms, this is horrible for black. Ivic,
It's
real surprise package.
the guy took down Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Fabiano Caruana to get to Division 1. And on paper, he might be an underdog. But with that performance, you know he's one to watch out for. And with that last move, an inaccuracy by Magnus, giving Valimir's pieces so many nice, juicy squares. And he jumps into one of them. Knight d4. Queen a3, attacking e3. Can white start getting greedy with queen c8, queen c4, picking up his own, well, an extra pawn on c4?
It looks that way. Some calculation is needed at the end of the line. Once you take that pawn, the white e3 pawn will drop. So it's about whether you want to risk it now, go for glory. If you want to stabilize and kind of postpone the tension, maybe you kind of give a check and drop the queen back to defend this pawn. But multiple ways of pressing the advantage. I quite like your one, Tanya. It feels like white's ready for the action to happen. So why not initiate it now? But knight c6 instead. Oh my gosh, I think he's got checkmate on his mind.
He's got Magnus's king on the mind, and when you go for the king, you better not miss it, as Magnus Carlsen famously said it himself. Knight e5 is incoming, David, with big pressure on the f7 square. 40 seconds for Velimir. How much of a factor is that right now, given the position, the material advantage for him?
It's huge. I think the clock is the only thing that might stop Velimir from bouncing back, as you said, and taking down the king. Taking down Magnus Carlsen, because f7 is pretty much indefensible long term. The black knight, the black bishop cannot defend this pawn. So if Ivic can get to it, it's simply game over. That's why Magnus retreats, realizing the black queen was too far offside. It was too far divorced from its own king. You need to kind of stay nearby, protect your own king. So a good defensive move from Magnus, but even an endgame, even in the near future, I don't think now, but at some point trading the queens off, black will likely suffer. I'll stop it soon.
David and endgames. Tell me a better love story, chat.
I'm like a broken record. That's all I think about. And he goes for it. Queens are off the board.
Ivic agrees. Queens are off the board. He's up in exchange. Well, e3 pawn is tender. He needs to support that pawn. And right now for Magnus, once the f pawn moves to f5, at least you've consolidated your own center, David.
Yeah, I did say don't go for it this very moment, because now the white rook has to go passive. And like you say, Tanya, great call, f5. You've connected your pawn chain. The black king is coming. And the problem is you're also facing an endgame expert, Magnus Carlsen. I think what he should have done, Ivic, maybe was wait a move or two. He could have traded the queens pretty much at any moment. So first he could have played moves like g3, got the white king closer, activated his rook, and then traded queens at will. Now he's pretty much got the worst possible version. And we see the bar sliding. Ivic not happy at all. The white knight's also trapped, Tanya. Where's the white knight going? It's running out of squares.
That's a great question. The white knight is trapped. The white rook is trapped on e2. You're up in exchange, but none of your pieces are playing. And Magnus has managed to do some wizardry here on the board, down materially, but is the one who's dominating the position. And right now he can take on e3, coming in with the tactics. Knight takes pawn in the air.
Wow, I think he can go for it, and quite happily go for it. Remove the defender, take this pawn with a check, most importantly, and then take the white knight. Black would then have a bishop and 2 pawns for the white rook. And wow, Magnus goes for it in a different fashion. He locks down the queen side. He's actually only got 1 pawn for the exchange now, but black's knight looks so dominant, Tanya. You can understand why Magnus would go for this. Soon these pawns will start running.
G5, F4 ideas are going to be on the board. White's rook still stuck defending that C2 pawn, and he's got 6 seconds to hold this position. Magnus doesn't only have the incredible ability to win winning positions, but he's also able to turn around worse positions. How do you beat this guy?
Oh, you might not beat this guy, especially not in this position. Now the black pawns can start running. You're right, it's that kind of Magnus magic, the endgame wizardry. Now the pawns combined with the knight. It's no surprise that the eval bars collapse. Magnus even kind of shrugs his shoulders and says, okay, I know I'm winning, but it's just about conversion now. 6 seconds. Tanya, we've got to say, it was the clock again. Maybe it was that queen trade that I was advocating. Ivic rushed, and he's allowed the momentum to slip away. Magnus turning the tables, as he always seems to do.
And it was a great call by you that would be a bad moment to go for it, where White would end up with a worse position regardless of being up materially. And right now we can see it's Magnus's king, it's Magnus's knight, it's Magnus's pawns that are playing right now. D4 can be picked up simply. Who's stopping the pawns from rolling down the board? F3 check incoming. Magnus doesn't do either of these two things. He's going for the C2 pawn. This is a Magnus Carlsen show.
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen show. I keep trying to highlight pawns you can grab, but then they get protected every time you want to start grabbing them. And oh, wow, look at that dancing knight. We talked about knights on the other board, but Black's knight just as strong as the white rook right now. Normally not the case, but here Black's knight, because of the fact it's protected and has so many outposts to jump to, this looks over e3. I guess his idea is to play king to e4 and to throw his pawns even further down the board. I don't think that's
Love it.
possible to prevent. Knight e5 as well looks very strong. There we go. Centralization. Magnus pushing those pawns to glory. Surely it's over, Tanya. Surely.
And the thing is, when you're playing against Magnus and you have this position, in your mind, you already feel like it's over. He's just coming in with his pawns and the king and the knight. And how are you guarding all of this with just 4 seconds on the clock? Magnus putting pressure on the f3 pawn, knight d2 taking control of all the squares. Are you going to rush in with e2 check? Magnus says, not just yet. f2 comes in. He queens. He wins the game. This is busted. It might be Magnus in 3 in this one, David.
It looks that way. Magnus is on the brink now. And, okay, Ivic has just resigned. White was actually almost zugzwanged. If the h-pawn wasn't off the board, it would be stalemate. Unfortunately, you had to push that pawn. And Magnus, 2-0. He turns it around. It looked like he was in danger, Tanya. Wow. Was that the players we heard there?
I can... Magnus, can you hear that?
Magnus, can you hear us?
Magnus, blink twice if you can hear us. The players can definitely not hear us. We've got all the fair play cams, and I think there was a little bit of a tech leak right there. We could hear Magnus just for a short moment. E2, you really nicely pointed out this very well could have been a stalemate had the H-pawn not been there, but because of that, this is game over, which means Magnus takes a 2-point lead in his match against Vachier-Lagrave. David, we've got one more live game. No, we've got 3 more live games remaining. So let's jump over. Another exchange done, but this one looks like the rook is far stronger than the knight.
It does look that way, although the black knight is anchored and it's on a beautiful outpost. So in order to win this, you might have to be quite sneaky, quite clever. And the white king is so far into the black camp, though, that surely you will be winning. And also, look at the clock. Look at Denis Lazavik there, struggling with 5-10 seconds left after every move. The problem is, even king and pawn endgames at the right moment might just be winning for white. First, the white king has a target. It wants to come in and attack the base of the black pawn chain. The weakness is going to be the g7 pawn if you can combine the white rook and king against it. But how to do that? The white kind of pieces have to dodge any potential knight checks. That's been stopped. Really nice technique here from Jan Nepomniachtchi. And the problem is, when you have a knight, you often do get zugzwanged. You run out of moves. You can't pass with a knight. So here, just waiting even for Jan Nepomniachtchi might force the black knight onto a bad circuit, and then you can go for that winning plan of picking up the g-pawn. Got to time it well, but Tanya, it does look like at the right moment, getting a rook on the 7th, getting king on f8 will crash through the black defenses.
But Denis also playing very resourcefully. He's going to come in with that knight check on e5. And what Jan wants to do is put that king on f8. And that would have been game over. So instead, knight f4. You have to keep checking the white king. He's looking at a construction of knight e6, knight g5 checks to make sure that white can't get to the g7 pawn. Incredible defense here. But I think now, with checkmate coming in, that's game over, David.
Oh, beautiful finish from Jan Nepomniachtchi. Look at that smile from him. A bit of a shake of the head. He's really proud of himself. Checkmate on the next move was guaranteed unless black threw away the knight there. So really, really nice finish. And it looks like, okay, we still have one game going. Alexei Serrana against Vincent Keymer. I'm going to try and pull that one up now. And here we go. It looks like that one might end decisively as well. Wow, what are we seeing here? Black's pawn's just rolling, Tanya. Vincent, 2-0 advantage. Looks imminent.
It really does, because white's king is cut off from any progress. And look at that black king. It's going to march all the way down from b4 to b3. You can stop the pawn with a check on g1. I think white is relying on rook g1 to block that check with the rook. You queen at the same time, but that cannot be enough. Because look at black king so close to that queen side pawns. It's all being played out. A queen trade would be over on the spot.
Yeah, queen trade would be over, but I'm really shocked. It looked like Vincent didn't need to go into a queen endgame, and queen endgames, I mean, this one might look winning, but it's going to go on for a long time now. Vincent's going to have to show good technique to finish this off. And actually, infamously, 2 pawns here. If the white pawn disappears, but the white king gets to the corner, if the white king's able to sit somewhere safely in the corner and the white queen start to check, even 2 pawns down, this is a textbook draw. So yeah, you would think that winning chances over the board in a practical game with the clock ticking. Here, Vincent's still surely a big favorite, but Alexei's surviving for now. If he can keep the queens on, as you say, a big if. No guarantee. And okay, and there we see the bar goes straight to the center, Tanya. He's walked into the textbook draw. And then he's blundered. The queens are off. Oh my God.
What just happened there? Queen d2, he just walked into the queen trade and immediately reacts on camera. Queen d2, queen b4, and Alexei Serrana is so angry with himself right now that he allowed that. He almost saved and survived there, David.
Yeah, he actually got to what is well known to be a draw. There would have been countless checks, but ultimately the clock played its part, and a hallucination there. He thought it was stalemate, but after the queen took the enemy queen, no trap of the white king. Black took the win, and there we see the scores, Tanya. 2-0 on 2 of our quarterfinals. Magnus Carlsen and Vincent Keymer on the brink of progressing to the next round.
It is a big game 3 coming up, but we've also got big action going on in our other 2 divisions, Division 2 and Division 3, with some massive names fighting it out for big bucks, for tour points, and a spot into Division 1 of the next Champions Chess Tour events. And to keep us on track with all of that's happening, we've got a very special guest, our very own Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky joining us. Daniel, what's going on in Division 2? It's been fantastic in Division 1, but we know you've got something awesome for us in store from your game review for Division 2.
Tanya, thank you so much for that introduction. What was really awesome was your coverage of those nail-biting games, particularly the Magnus Ivic finish. I've been on the edge of my seat, but a lot of the matches in Division 2 have really produced some highly combative games. And the game that I've chosen to quickly run through comes from the match between Matthias Blubaum and Daniel Dubov, 2 crowd favorites who are bound to produce interesting games. They've got opposing styles, and their first game went off the rails really quickly, Tanya and David. I'll start from move 14. This is where Matthias Blubaum throws his pawn up to e6, creating massive tension in the center. He jumps in with knight g5, and Daniel Dubov says, I don't care about anything going on the king side. Now Blubaum plays knight takes h7, hoping for king takes h7, queen to h5 with imminent checkmate. But Daniel Dubov ignores that as well and jumps in to e5 with his knight. After the exchange on f8, literally an exchange, that's what Daniel Dubov sacrificed, we get a crazy middle game in which the first person to make a tactical error is going to be worse. And that person was Matthias Blubaum. Rook to d1, a mistake because of the move b3. And that is an incredible tactical idea. A takes b3, runs into knight to b4. And because of this bishop on a6, the queen has no way to maintain its protection of the f2 pawn. Therefore, Blubaum took with the queen, allowing Daniel Dubov's queen into f2, and it was a scintillating attacking game. There was one other interesting moment. It looked like a foregone conclusion that Dubov was going to carry this to victory, but both players were in acute time pressure. Here, knight takes h3 was the winning idea. G takes h3, queen f2 check, and then rook to h5 would have set up imminent checkmate. But instead, Dubov plays e5, allowing Bluebaum to eliminate this bishop, a very important attacking piece. And knight g4, king g1, queen takes g3. It gets complicated again. Dubov repeats moves and then plays rook to d6. The eval bar swings again, and at some point, Matthias Bluebaum had a chance to seize the initiative. And it was right here. If he had played the move knight c5 and then knight e4 and knight to g5, he actually would have been attacking. But instead, rook c1 is just too slow. Dubov's pawn advances up to d3. And once again, black has the winning position. e4 lets the queen into d4. Incredible play with just seconds on his clock by Daniel Dubov. His two passed pawns decide the game, and another brilliant move to top off the victory, setting up e2 with a discovered check. A couple of meaningless moves by Bluebaum, resulting in total crushing victory by Daniel Dubov. Bluebaum played until checkmate, and with two queens on the board, Dubov delivers a striking victory in the first game. He also won the second game, Tanya, and is on his way to victory in the second division. Just want to remind everybody that chess.com/events has the games from all three divisions, all of which feature scintillating matches and amazing players. But of course, Costa and Jules doing work covering those divisions. You guys are doing great work covering the first division. Back to you, Tanya and David.
Daniel, that was a masterclass by Daniel Dubov and by you on Attacking Chess. Fantastic game review right there. But I have to ask you, with so much on the line for these players in Division 2, if you had to predict a winner who qualifies for Division 1 of the next event of the Champions Chess Tour, who do you think takes Division 2?
I'm taking Daniel Dubov. I mean, I had such a hard time choosing a game. But part of the reason I chose Dubov is because he just seems to be in incredible form today. But I would recommend everybody just to surf through the matches and to see how many names are in Division 2 and have a serious chance of making it into the top division, Tanya. My vote, though, is Dubov at the moment.
I know there's a certain Vidit Gujarati in the mix as well. So, Daniel, I might take you in on that as a challenge with big matches in Division 2. And we know you'll be joining us soon for more action from the other divisions, Daniel. And we are on the halfway mark through to today's matches chat. And it has been dramatic chess so far. During the break, we've got some exclusive content coming up. Check out the evolution of our Chess.com logo. And when we're back, it's going to be Game 3 of the winners' quarterfinals. Magnus Carlsen, Duda in fire. You're watching the Chess.com Classic. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Eric, CEO and co-founder at Chess.com. When we started this company 18 years ago, one of the first questions we had was, what's our logo going to be? And we thought a lot about it. We looked at all the different chess pieces. There were king logos out there were rook logos, there were lots of knight logos for chess companies, but no one had chosen the pawn. In chess, pawns are everything. They dictate the shape of the game. For Chess.com's logo, we wanted the most common piece because we wanted Chess.com to be for every type of chess player, beginners, through grandmasters, even world champions. As we began the process of thinking about our logo, we also kicked off a design contest with a design contest service online to hopefully get some inspiration and see some ideas that we might choose from. But what we got back wasn't great. It didn't align with our vision. None of it resonated with us. It was either too fancy, or it was all the wrong chess pieces, or it just wasn't good quality. And we were a little bit discouraged. So I then asked a great friend of mine and said, hey, you're a graphic designer. Why don't you put together as many ideas as you can, and we'll see if something resonates. And it did. Inside of these logos that were hand-drawn by my friend, we found some real promising ideas. We knew we wanted something clean and simple. We didn't want anything fancy. We're not fancy people, and even though the game of chess is the most royal of games, we wanted something that felt clean and open and welcoming for everybody. We liked the pawn. We also thought about our colors. Well, everybody was doing blue at the time, and a lot of people for chess did black and white, but that didn't feel right for us. For us, green felt right. It was the color we've been looking at on scholastic chessboards, and no one else had chosen it. So we picked green. We wanted a green pawn. We initially picked something that felt kind of fun and right, but maybe was okay in the year, 2005, but it didn't sit quite right. So pretty soon, we started to angle a little bit different, a little bit simpler, and we came up with this very first version of the green pawn Chess.com logo. From there, it's evolved several different times as the pawn shape kind of moved from older and more classical to a little bit newer, and then finally to our current pawn, which is based on our Neo chess pieces, which is our view of the modern future of chess. Designing the Chess.com logo was a personal project for me because I was so excited about the feel and the touch of what we would put out in front of the community. What some people don't know about me, they look at me as like the CEO of Chess.com, as they probably picture me as like a business person doing like number stuff. I don't care about any of that. What I really love is the product, the feel, the pixels, the design, the buttons, all the different things. I am deeply involved in every aspect of our product, including our logo. And so for me, this was a passion project. I love the elements of design. And I work really closely with a huge, amazing team of talented designers who work on this. And I'm grateful to everybody who has worked on the logo and listened to me be really nitpicky about every single detail of the curve of the pawn and the color and the shading and all the different things. And just really, it's been an awesome collaborative process for us to get to where we are today with the current modern Chess.com logo. The Chess.com Classic is our celebration of 17 years of working on chess and working with you, the community, to make chess the greatest game ever.
Vincent Keymer, one of the young prodigies in the forefront of the new generation, the new wave of chess shaking up the world's elite. And he's had some phenomenal performances where he makes his debut in the Champions Chess Tour Division 1 here at the Chess.com Classic. And so far, he has been flawless. And there we see Vincent's spot to the Chess.com Classic. It all happened, David, with his incredible performance in our first event, the Chessable Masters, where he took Division 2.
That's right. A few months ago, Vincent was on fire. Look at that, defeating the likes of Peter Svidler, Levon Aronian. Actually, Levon Aronian in 2 matches. On his day, Vincent can beat anyone. As you mentioned, Tanya, he's still young, he's still evolving. His style has actually really changed in just the last 1 year alone. He's upped his game in the attacking sense. He's more ambitious, more direct, and that's paying off. So far today, he's been doing pretty well. That being said, another player who's doing well is Magnus Carlsen, and Duda as well, leading in his match. So much impressive chess on show, Tanya, already today.
So Vincent Keymer, his universal style has always been so impressive, and the one player who has to bring on some stylish chess is Valimir Ivic right now. He does trail Magnus. It's 2-0. Magnus has been flawless so far on day one of division play, but David, that's to no one's surprise. Magnus only knows how to win, and he continues to do that. What are the chances for Valimir to get a win? He has to win on demand to keep the match going.
Yeah, it's let's be honest, let's be realistic. It's a really long shot right now. That being said, he can take inspiration, Ivic, from the fact he beat Caruana yesterday twice with black. It was all about the black pieces, and that's where his success, that's where the foundations lie. And also this slightly quirky opening. This feels like Magnus having a bit of fun. Queen takes d4. Doesn't have the best reputation historically, but I did see it's been played in recent times by some top grandmasters. I believe Peter Svidler played this recently in a serious game. So here we go. Bishop's coming out. It's an open Sicilian, but a bit of a weird one. And Ivic, at least all the pieces are on the board. It's imbalanced enough. If you want to create winning chances, must-win situation, then this is how you do it. So Magnus not trying to shut this game down. Nice to see, Tanya.
But that's the thing with him, right? We've seen him at so many events, so many important situations where he might just need a draw, but he keeps the game going. And I've seen him do that even at World Championships. So it's no surprise here. Magnus needing only a draw to wrap up this match. He keeps it entertaining. Queen takes pawn was the opening approach by him. We're going to get a game on our hands. But David, I think the chances of this being a match in 3 is extremely high. Valimir Ivic has to also deal with the fact that he's playing against the world number 1. He's down 2 points in the match, and he has to win with black. And that's, you're not only battling on the board, but you're battling your own mind as well.
Yeah, the odds are stacked against him. I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen Magnus Carlsen lose with white in such an important game when a draw is enough. Magnus normally knows when to take the safety first approach. And we were praising Magnus for keeping the game alive, for keeping this quite double-edged so far in the opening. But don't get me wrong, if Magnus gets an opportunity to take the safe way out, lock it down, bank it, a draw, move on, then I'm sure Magnus will jump on that opportunity. So Ivic cannot allow any forcing lines where Magnus and Magnus's job becomes easier. b6, he's just going to try and fianchetto both of his bishops. He's trying to stay solid. He'll put his rook on c8 and see what unfolds from there. Early days in this one, Tanya, but I think we're guaranteed a full-blooded fight in the middle game.
It's a must-win game for Ivic with the black pieces. He's down 2-0 to take it to game 4. He has to make magic happen. Meanwhile, Magnus goes on activating his queen, also vacating that e3 square for his own bishop. It's going to be a fun one, David. And while Ivic trails Magnus by 2 points, one player who managed to equalize the score in round 2 of Division 1 was Jan Nepomniachtchi, and he's playing against Denis Lazavik. We're getting moves in. Let's zoom out for a moment from this one. Let's bring up our bird's eye view as I see a lot of action going on in the fight between Denis and Jan.
Wow, blink and you miss it. That board on the top right of our screens, the red checkered board there, it's on fire. There's been a bunch of exchanges. It's actually level material, but queens have disappeared. They've departed very early. Meanwhile, on the bottom left of your screens, we see a slower Petrov defense, one of the most solid openings in chess between Alireza Firouzja and Jan-Krzysztof Duda. And Vincent Keymer against Alexei Sarana, very early days there. It's a Queen's Gambit declined, and we'll see which branch Alexei Sarana chooses. So I elect to jump straight over to that game you mentioned, Denis Lazavik against Jan Nepomniachtchi, where it looks like already we're getting some big questions answered. In terms of not just the opening, which was a Queen's Gambit decline, but also who's going to take the upper hand. To me, Tanya, it looks like only white can be better. Take the bishop pair. We talk about it a lot. It's in the endgame. Long-term bishops thrive. And white's beautiful fianchettoed bishop will experience a second life once its counterpart is removed. I elect taking this bishop, centralizing the white rooks. Jan playing for solidity here. What do you make of this strategy? Happy to try and shut things down with the black pieces.
It's a really dynamic endgame, right? You've got the 4 minor pieces all on the board, and you're suggesting an idea where white neutralizes the bishop pair that Jan has, but I'm also looking at the other trade that's on offer right now. Denis could actually take that knight on f6, further wounding black's pawn structure on the king side, and that's also something that could be very tempting for me at least, to look at in this position. So a choice to be made here, but I completely agree with you that given the pawn structure, the piece activity, yes, black's got the bishop pair, which can immediately be neutralized. Further pawn structure weaknesses for black. I think I'm taking white so far, but it also looks like it should be fine. It's too early to call for a big advantage just yet, David.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think just we learn from history, right? We learn from our own experiences. Knight takes c6 was played, and Jan has certainly learned from game one of the day, where he tried to go on the front foot, tried to kind of initiate all that chaos, and was duly punished in brutal fashion, we've got to say, by Denis Lazavik. Denis won what was almost a miniature 20-something moves, and Jan was busted. So now adopting a different approach. I think a good lesson for everyone at home. If you're trying something and it's not working, try something new. That's the definition of madness, they say, where you keep repeating the same thing, expecting a different result. Jan now learning from past mistakes, trying to make a draw with black, and confident if he gets white in the next game. So rook to d1. And yeah, I have a feeling, Tanya, candidates prep might be at play as well. This was the reason he's been so successful at candidates, Jan Nepomniachtchi. Just almost unbreakable with black. So yes, I prefer white, but if he knows what he's doing, I'm sure he can equalize. And so few pieces left on the board. A draw may be the most likely.
With the e6 weakness now, white's bishop eventually ending up on h3, targeting it. It does look like Denis should be pleased with the trumps in his position. And look at that. Jan continues to play actively. He can't just sit giving the bishop pair to white. So he jumps in with his own knight to d3. Right now, Denis has to answer the question of what he's going to do with that b2 pawn. Agreed with you. And also, David, just to point out, rook d2 is not a very happy move. You always have to watch out for threats like that. Knight jumping onto e4, calculate how the tactics work out. And it just looks like black's got his own ideas in the position. As Denis thinks how to counter the threat on b2, this one again is going to be a bit of an end the game grind. Should we zoom out, take a look at some of the other boards?
Let's do just that. And yeah, this game guaranteed to go on for a long time, despite the lack of material, despite the lack of queens. Let's go elsewhere. Wow, the Magnus Carlsen game on the top left there has evolved. Ivic has taken a really risky decision because he's in a must-win situation. And maybe we'll check back in on that one in a moment. Just to mention, Firouzja against Duda, still a very quiet, well-known type of Petrov. And really maiden days there. Vincent Keymer against Alexei Serrano. I think that's a theoretical position. We won't rush into that one yet. Tanya, do I have your blessing? Jumping back to Magnus.
Let's do it. Let's do it, David. Let's head over to the big board where Valimir Ivic, must-win game, as you mentioned, taking some big drastic decisions because that is the need of the hour. What do we have here? Magnus with the bishop pair. And by big decisions, I think you were implying to giving up that dark squared bishop by Valimir to destroy Magnus's pawn structure. Very committal because you're weakening your king a lot with that trade on c3.
Yeah, let's just quickly jump in and backtrack, just an action replay to show what we've missed since we were last here. Ivic, because of the must-win situation, didn't necessarily play maybe the most solid move, just developing his bishop or parking a knight in the center, both very healthy moves. He controversially captured on c3, something we're taught not to do, especially at the lower levels where pawn structure is far less relevant than the fact that the black king is open. And if we catch up with the current game position, wow, the moves are coming in thick and fast now. Queen to h4 played in the game, and we saw the blue arrow appear. e6, getting those queens off the board was the order of the day, but no, Ivic continuing to allow white to attack, and bishop g5 instantly spotted by Magnus, attacking this pawn twice now. This was defended, and f4. You mentioned it, Tanya, the weaknesses around the black king a target, and I mean the squares around it. Oh, so many dark squared holes. It feels like Magnus here in dominant fashion. He's attacking now.
It's f4 for the score, and when it's f5, that's going to be high five because that f-pawn isn't stopping right now. It's coming in with more firepower. f5 coming on next, forcing black to take some decisions with that bishop. That f-pawn might even go to f6. David playing on the dark squares. Imagine a pawn on f6, queen on h6, queen lands on g7. That's game over, and it just feels like it's about to flow. How do you fight this very simple concept with black?
Oof, I'm not sure you do. We see the frown from Ivic there. He knows it's difficult now. I love it. Your suggestion there, Tanya. The f-pawn is just a battering ram. It's knocking down the doors of the Black King's palace right now. And I mean, the knight is attacked. If you drop back to d7, I think you instantly get hit by a bunch of tactics. White can even win a pawn there, I just realized. If just to show this knight d7, at the very minimum, you can take on d6 due to a nice pin along the diagonal. I equally like your f5 move, just blasting things open. This looks devastating for the black king. I mean, yes, the bar might slide, but human terms, I think this is checkmate all day long. And actually, something very similar has appeared on the board, knight c4, and this has indeed happened. Your f5 move. Notice how there's an added element of the knight hanging on a loose square on c4. So if there's a capture on f5, suddenly multiple attacks. Magnus, he's kind of sleepwalking to victory here. Ivic, maybe that decision, bishop takes c3, he's going to live to regret it. It's backfired, but he did what he thought he needed to do, so we can't blame him for that. Ivic taking risks here.
And that's the thing, when you're trailing a scoreline like 2-0, you end up taking these decisions which objectively are so questionable, but you need to keep the game going. So you don't play what you normally would, the standard moves that you would make, because you need to fight for more. And when you do that against a player like Magnus, he's going to come for you. You give him one chance, he's going to be all over the position, and it looks like it is going to be Velamir's king that's going to be under fire. David, Magnus combining both ideas of a trade on e6, like you said, also blasting open with f5. This is looking super scary. Magnus can pick. Can cherry pick right now. You could also take on g6, land your queen on h6. Ideas like that come to mind with big pressure, or you could just simply win the e6 pawn. I really like f takes g and queen h6 here.
Yeah, I love it too, Tanya. Just route one straight to the black king. No need to mess around anymore. You've done the hard work. You've opened things up. The black king is literally, I mean, stripped of its defenses. Forgot to get dressed this morning, that black king, and yeah, go for the kill. I guess the black knight will try and drop back to defend, but it's not going to last for long. It won't plug the holes forever. That black knight will just be removed by a white bishop. He follows your advice. Bishop f4, though, looks terminal. There we go. Knight dropping off the board, at least exchanged off the board, and the black g pawn falls. This one, at least in terms of the match, for Magnus, it's over. I'm not saying he's going to win necessarily, but I don't see Ivic here ever winning and striking back.
Yeah, I agree. Even if you just take on e5 and capture on g6, that's a position you're never losing with black's king, at least. And I can already see ideas of a perpetual, a repetition on the board. So it looks like it is going to be Magnus in 3 in this one. He's trying to think, can he try to do more in this position? Because after bishop takes knight, the black queen recaptures the bishop and at least comes back to defend. And look at that, Magnus Carlsen is going for more.
He's going for more for now, but he's still got it up his sleeve for later. Bishop takes knight. I was chuckling to myself. I was thinking, what would Wesley do? WWD D right now. Just what would Wesley do? He would take the knight, he would take the pawn, he'd give perpetual and get out of here, move to the next round. But Magnus is such a perfectionist. Magnus wants to win. Rook f8, a really good move, I've got to say. And now Magnus, I think, should go for the draw maybe before the black rook's able to step up and prevent any more checks. So here we go. Yeah. What would Wesley do? He'd take the draw, and Magnus does it too.
There we have it. And Magnus Carlsen goes through to the winners semifinals. It was a Magnus Carlsen show, a dominating performance by him, a match in 3, 2 victories, and then wrapping it up on his own terms in game 3, finishes it with a draw. That's match over. We got action on the other 3 boards. Just to end that note, when you said WWD, what would Wesley do? I was thinking you meant win-win draw, which is what Wesley would do.
Just realized it's WWWD even. So what would Wesley do? That's the big question. And being pragmatic, banking the result, I think that's what any professional would do. So Magnus Carlsen, we'll see him tomorrow in the winners semifinals, but we'll also see Velimir Ivic. He's got a second life, and he's earned the chance to continue having a shot at the top players in the world. And okay, Tanya, where next? That's the big question. 3 boards still ongoing, 3 really complicated positions, 2 really tense middle games, and an imbalanced endgame on the top right.
That's a top right between Denis and Jan. I still think draw is the most likely result in that one. I want to pick one of the bottom 2 boards right there because it just looks like exciting middle games. That bottom right board, Serrana's queen stuck on a5, but also creating some threats. The king side feels a bit tender right now, and for Alireza against Jan Shrishtov Duda, an incredibly tense position as well. David, let's head over to the Vincent Serrana board, because for Serrana, it is a must-win game. To stay in the fight, to stay in the race, he has to score a win with black in this one. What are his chances?
Well, I'm going to say they're not that bad right now, Alexei Serrana, purely because he's got all the pieces on the board, or most of the pieces on the board. It's just really tense, as you say. And black has a lot to be happy about. Yes, white controls most of the center right now, but black's c4 pawn could potentially be really strong. Whoa, did not expect that, I've got to say. Vincent going on the attack. The black king does lack defenders, so maybe that's the trigger, the signal for actually looking at the other side of the board. I was going to say, on the queen side, black is in control at the right moment, c3 or b4, or some action on the queen side. So, wow, g6 now, and no sacrifices. Vincent simply drops back. He's tried to loosen up the black king side. The black dart squares over on that flank do look vulnerable, but now bishop back to f3. I'm just not sure what the plan is, Tanya. Unless it's chaos, unless it's a pawn to c3 type move, you have to drop back your queen. You have to kind of take the slow approach, push your a pawn, then push your b pawn, then push your c pawn. It still takes a while, but I'm talking myself into quite liking black's chances, I've got to say, at least in a must-win situation. The clock on his side too.
The only thing is, right, if you divide the board into half, you see all of black's pieces are on the queen side. Everything, every single piece. The king on the king side a bit deserted. So if white just give white a few moves, the h-pawn becoming a battery ram down the board, the knight already eyeing those dark squares. There are threats of bishop takes knight, a knight potential check on f6. There are ideas on the king side that you need to watch out for. So it feels like it's going to be a race. Alexei Serrana's domination on the queen side, and can Vincent create play on the king side?
Yeah, that's exactly how I think everyone should approach this position. Pawn to h5 here. Wow, blue arrow appears. I think that's a really difficult move. I don't see that being played. I think black will simply retreat his knight. But yeah, you explained it really instructively there, Tanya. It's all about the black king. And it looks like it's covering all of the dart squares. But as soon as the black knight moves, the white queen will step forward. And she's already eyeing up the king on this diagonal. The white queen might even slide to the right and slide over into h6. So, oh, I said h5 wouldn't happen, but Alexei Serrana grimacing there on the camera. He didn't look too happy. I think he's going to move his knight, but h5 would be a real shock here for Vincent, because counterattacking, kicking, and attacking piece back would maybe totally kind of put out the flames of any white attack. So, ooh, critical moment. What do you think? Is he going to play h5? Is he going to find the best move?
He has to, but the best move might mean that you've got more simplification, which basically does not work out for Serrana. Again, a decision taken given the mat situation. He falls back with the knight. I'm looking at ideas of a knight trade, and then your move, queen c3, lining up against that black king, and we see it on the board. David, this looks like it's bad news for black. The king isn't hiding. d5 is incoming.
Yeah, never lead from the front in the middle game with your king, especially when there are queens still on the board. This looks terrifying. He's got to run. He's got to sprint back home. I think we might see him block. There we go. Block the center before the white pieces flood forward. But actually, they're flooding forward anyway. f4 coming next. The pin. Yeah, it's all gone wrong for Serrana. That one moment, h5, really difficult move. We've got to say, we've got to highlight how tough that is in such a tense position with no time on your clock. But yeah, it looks like it's turned. Look at this, all in white's favor now. White conquering the center, going for the black king. Vincent, big favorite, you've got to think, Tanya.
I completely agree. And we're not even talking just looking at the scoreline, but also the board that we have in front of us. He's in driver's seat. Compare each of the pieces, compare the pawns in the position, the space advantage. It might be, again, f5 and we live. f6, this position you can't fix. I'm bringing on the rhymes right now, but David, it feels like Vincent's the one. If anyone can take this point, it's got to be white. For Serrana, it could be match over.
Yeah, Serrana really living life on the edge, at least in the winner's bracket right now. Oh, rook f2. Vincent, he's found the key to the position. Vincent here doubling up on the f file. Yeah, no rush. Why rush when you're ahead in the match, when you've already done the hard work, you've established the beautiful pawn center? Tanya, I think that Vincent's just fully in control here. Maybe we can jump over to another board where, I mean, the eval bar is really confusing me, but I'm going to take us over immediately, actually, to Denis Lazavik against Jan Nepomniachtchi, because that's a weird, wonderful endgame. So imbalanced. You said a draw is the most likely. Computer seems to agree here, but if I were playing, I would have no idea how to evaluate this one. It's currently 2 knights for a rook and a pawn, but white has won connect 4 with his beautiful pawn chain, and the white pawns are rolling. as are their counterparts. So whose pawns are quicker here? I have no idea. I have a feeling this one's going to be decisive.
I'm going to rephrase what I said. This is a game for all three results, and draw is the least likely of them all. David, completely on board with you. It's extra material there. Well, not extra material. It's rook for 2 pieces, an extra pawn, a rook and pawn for 2 pieces. I'm going to correct myself. But look at those black pawns. I would want to be black here. It just feels like at some point you could sacrifice one of your minor pieces for white's advanced pawns. But who's going to stop the A pawn from rolling forward? David, if you had to pick a color right now, what would you choose?
I mean, you might as well ask me to roll a dice, Tanya. It's or you might as well ask me to toss a coin, flip a coin. I have no idea. I think I would need 2 hours to figure out this position, let alone the 2 minutes that the players have on the clock. Bishop f5, I guess, just threatening e6. I probably would take black just because of that concept that you mentioned, sacrificing a piece back for a bunch of the white pawns and still having these dangerous runners on the queen side, which are going to be hard to stop. But I don't say it confidently. How about yourself?
How can you be confident in this position? Because you've got about under 2 minutes to calculate this line. You push the a pawn, e6. You have to give up your knight. Is it going to be enough? Yeah, Nepomniachtchi decides it's not enough. He stops the threat for now. He's pinning that e5 pawn, also threatening the b pawn rolling up the board. To me, it just also feels as if white's pieces are coming in the way of an advance. e6 is impossible. f5 is impossible. It just feels like it's going to be easier for Jan to get the pawns rolling.
Yeah, and we keep saying that word, easier, and it's just, I mean, especially with the clock ticking down, you want natural moves. That's kind of the definition of speed chess, rapid blitz chess. If you have an easy plan, normally, even if you don't have the advantage, you're going to be the favorite. You're going to be the quicker player. You're going to be the more confident player. Denis, also in terms of style, I'm not sure he's too comfortable in these types of imbalanced endgames. Jan, meanwhile, he's been... rocking these types of positions since he was a kid. So I definitely think Jan is the more confident of the two.
And he's already eyeing ideas like knight takes pawn. We've been talking about sacrificing one of the minor pieces for just one pawn. Right now, Jan can actually pick up 2 of these central pawns and then have his own pawn roller down on the queen side. And I look at Jan on the camera. He looks like he's confident about his chances, and he's up on the clock as well. An extra minute in this position, David, that counts for a lot.
Yeah, that could and should be vital. That being said, Denis has initiated the race. The B pawn is running, but he's going to push his own pawns, which are going to be hard to stop. The G and or H pawns. Wow, this is just a pure race. It's a 50-50. Who's going to sprint faster? Who's going to cross that finishing line? The white bishop does protect the B1 square, so I'm really surprised that Jan's pushing the B pawn first. But maybe he's got a cunning plan in mind for later to deflect that bishop. So tough, Tanya, here. So irrational, this type of position.
It's absolutely insane. It's the kind of position you want to sit back and just enjoy how it's played out. Because one move, one wrong inaccuracy could actually just mean dead loss. And right now, there could be threats of taking on e5, putting that knight to d3, but the g pawn is so far advanced. How's 96 you're pointing out, David? I love that move.
Tanya, I wish that was me. I wish that was me. The blue arrow, that shows the computer thinks it's by far Black's best move. And wow, it's the only move I just checked not to lose. Wow, he doesn't find it. Knight to e6, trying to deflect the bishop. White's king actually should have gone the other way there. Again, he has to find knight e6. Otherwise, white is winning. Otherwise, the g-pawn will just promote. He'll move the rook, and then he'll make a new queen. So, key moment. Nepomniachtchi, 40-something seconds. He has to find knight to e6 to stay alive in this game. Otherwise, Denis will take it. Deflect away the white bishop from this beautiful diagonal. Knight e6 hits the white rook, hits a pawn. What do you think, Tanya? Is he going to play it? Is he going to find it?
Big moment. He's taking his time. That's the good news for Jan fans, because sometimes he can rush through these positions, but he has to be precise. Knight e6 is the make or break move in this position. It gets the dub in, or it just ruins everything, and it'll be Denis who will take the lead in his match. And now he's down to 15 seconds. The advantage on the clock is gone, and Jan Nepomniachtchi doesn't find it. The rook will slide over to b7, stopping b1. The g-pawn moves forward.
G-pawn moves forward, and I'm not sure if I'm missing anything here, but maybe you can take this b-pawn off the board and then just make a new queen. Push on, promote. The black pieces are just bystanders as that pawn steps forward, and Denis misses it. Now the black bishop can block.
It.
Oh my
he
gosh.
doesn't find it. But you got g7 now. You come in with a check. You come in with a check on the king.
He's still winning here with white. It's complicated though because the black pawn is so close to touchdown. Do you make a new queen? No time for that. There would have been checkmate patterns against the black king, and now the white queen needs to win this pawn. You need to get rid of the b pawn by checks, by hook, by crook. You need to prevent this pawn from promoting, and there we go. He drops back. Do you think he's going to get the win? Still difficult, Tanya.
A really nice square. Queen b3 would have run into a fork on the d4 square. So precise play by Denis Lazavik there. b2 pawn has been stopped. Meanwhile, the e pawn can start marching down the board, and it does it. David, to answer your question, I think Denis has this one. He's taking this in.
Yeah, he looks so nervous. At least he did for a second, Denis Lazavik, but he calmed himself down and he knows that he's so close now. The white e pawn, oh, stepping forward. Why is this last move a mistake? Wow, black leaves the bishop hanging, and this is anyone's game. Oh, Jan blunders.
And you pick,
check.
oh my gosh. You pick it up with a check. You pick up the knight with a check. And this is over for Jan Nepomniachtchi. It is over for Jan Nepomniachtchi. Can you believe it? David, the 17-year-old, takes the lead in the match for the second time.
Wow, and sorry, I jumped to this game. I'm going to actually bring us over to the other game, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, with black, another player who might be about to bank his way into the next round and knock Firouzja down to the loser's bracket. King d5, black is a pawn up here, Tanya. The black king is coming in. What do you think? Is Duda going to finish this one off? g5 so sneaky. Rook check on the 5th rank. Ooh, what happened there? Looks like he's winning.
You just picked it up. Oh my gosh, the clock. He's got 4 seconds, and Duda there with a shake of his head. He missed bishop takes pawn.
Bishop takes bishop now. He's just hung his bishop.
And rook c5. Just blocked the check. He didn't see it. He didn't see it. He could have just picked up the bishop.
Duda could have won a piece. The moves are just flying down on the board. We might show that one later if Duda fails to wrap this up and win now, but he's shaking his head on the camera. A bunch of checks. He might have blown the win. Firouzja might live to fight another day.
And that would not have been just game over, but match over. Had Jan-Krzysztof Duda just picked up the hanging bishop.
That was crazy. Mutual chess blindness. It happens so much. You trust the opponent. Firouzja put the bishop on pre, but it could have been captured. There was a check, but a block was possible. Black's still a favorite though here, Tanya. Can he utilize? Can he profit from his extra pawn here, do you think?
It's far from over. It is far from over, this one. David, once again, anything can happen. And I still think it's a game for all 3 results. Even though black has the extra pawn, it's so easy to blunder something in these positions. Meanwhile, Vincent Keymer gets the job done. He advances through to the winner semifinals with a win in his match against Alexis Sarana.
Yeah, we saw that one earlier. Vincent Keymer was in the driver's seat. Sarana did save the game, but not the match. So congratulations to Vincent. We'll see both of the players tomorrow as Sarana needs to bounce back through the loser's bracket now. In the meantime, 2 seconds against 6 seconds. This position hasn't changed much, but I can feel your nerves, Tanya. Mine too.
But look at the players. They are showing no nerves at all. How are they making these moves on seconds on the clock? This is insane.
Wow. Especially Firouzja defending this by the skin of his teeth, holding the black c-pawn's advance with no time on his clock. Really impressive. He's upped his game since he got into this endgame. And it's Duda who's low on the clock. Duda Duda's walked into a repetition.
And the players react. He can't believe it. He knows he was so close to getting the dub, and that would have been match over. But Jan-Krzysztof Duda, he allows Alireza Firouzja to escape and to take it to game 4 in this match. What a topsy-turvy endgame that was, David.
Wow, topsy-turvy, but luck in the end favoring the brave. Firouzja clinging on and gets another bite at the cherry. In the meantime, we do have 2 players progressing. Magnus Carlsen and Vincent Keymer doing it the professional way, securing their victories in the match with a draw in the 3rd game. Impressive stuff, Tanya.
The 2 players who booked their spot in Division 1 of the Chess.com Classic with their performance in the Chessable Masters advance through to the winners semifinals. We got big game 4 coming up as the fight continues on our other 2 matches. And we've got a big update coming up as once again we're joined by our very own Daniel Naroditsky. Daniel, take it away. We're catching our breath, but I believe there was some breathless action in Division 2.
in the second and third division. And the match that I've chosen to spotlight for my second review is between Andrei Esipenko, who just scored a comeback victory against Alexander Rakhmonov, winning 2 games in a row, games 3 and game 4, after being down a point to take this Division 2 match. And he did it with some scintillating play. In the third game, Andrei Esipenko blunders this incredible tactic, knight takes e3. And after f takes e3, queen takes e3, Rakhmonov picks up the bishop. He's up a pawn. But Esipenko did not despair. He delivers this very important check on e2, forcing Rakhmonov's king to the side. And now knight e6, not the best way to attack, but this sets up a massive storm against Black's king. Rakhmonov forcing the queens off the board, but it doesn't matter. Rook takes c7 sets up a difficult dilemma for Rakhmonov. He finds the best move, bishop to e8. But look at the way that Esipenko maneuvers his pieces. Rook e1 hitting the bishop, now rook e2 attacking the bishop again, and finally Rakhmonov goes wrong with f takes c6. Instead, keeping the bishop would have kept the position dynamically balanced. Instead, he plays f takes c6, and this endgame is losing, but it's not the end of their adventures. Andrei Esipenko works on the queen side to create a pass pawn. They trade off a pair of rooks. a4 deflects the bishop from the a6 pawn. Rook takes a6. Rook to a5, chasing away the bishop. Looks like the coast is clear for Andrei Esipenko, but we're not done with our adventures. In this position, the winning move was simply to play b6. And we see this in a lot of the divisions. Players just kind of overthinking these critical moments. King h2, bishop c8, and maybe Andrei Esipenko just missed this move rook to a8 with b7 unstoppable, but instead he wastes a move with rook a1, and this gives Rakhmonov the chance to set up the Maginot line on the 7th rank. He gets his king out of the way, and now the position is actually drawn. But in massive mutual time pressure, Rakhmonov, after finding several accurate moves, misses the final drawing chance. Rook b2 check would have likely taken the match, because after Esipenko shifts his rook away, Black can simply play bishop g2, allowing the promotion. And I was analyzing this position with Stockfish while you guys were commentating, and this is actually a draw. How often do you get, let me say this, bishop and 4 pawns versus rook and bishop? This is a draw because Black's h-pawn is so far advanced, but instead, with just seconds on the clock, Rakhmonov puts his rook on the wrong square, allowing Esipenko's king to escape and promote to a queen. Esipenko wins the next game as well and takes the match. Lots of action in Division 2 and Division 3. Make sure to visit chess.com/events to cover all of the action. Great job, David and Tanya, on the commentary in the main division. Back to you for more action.
Thanks so much, Daniel. That was an awesome game, and so much action across all the 3 divisions. The clock really is the 17th piece in the Champions Chess Star. And there we've got our bracket of Division 1, Magnus Carlsen, Vincent Keymer, through to the winner semi-final. Who will join them? We've got 2 big matches remaining, as Jan Nepomniachtchi, world number 4, will be playing Denis Lazavik, who leads the match. Denis Lazavik ranked world number 282, and he's the one who needs only a draw to advance through in the winners bracket. David, what are your predictions for this final rapid game coming up?
Wow, I think, yes, Denis has been so impressive today, but Jan has great chances to bounce back. Jan takes the white pieces. Last time he got the job done, he bounced back from a defeat. So far, it's all been about the white pieces in this clash between these 2 great fighters. So Jan, he needs to bring his best, but Denis, top form, Tanya. I do want to see Armageddon, I've got to say. And that's not because I'm a big Jan fan, which I am, but just because I want more chess. And it will be fascinating to see who is the faster of the 2. Jan, meanwhile, just needs to compose himself. There's a lot of shaking of the head on the camera, and body language giving away a lot right now, Tanya.
And that first game in this match was such a gift by Jan to Denis. He seemed to have just outplayed himself in that one. It's liftoff. We are underway for the final game 4 of this match. And we've got the Spanish, a slow start. Jan saying, I don't want a theoretical battle. I just want a game. I just want a position to play on.
That's right. Not the full Berlin defense. It's an anti-Berlin where white doesn't allow a bunch of exchanges, a bunch of simplifications in the center. This is aimed at keeping all 32 pieces on the board, or maybe I should say 34 if we add both sides and their clocks, as we have been doing, Tanya. But yeah, all 32 pieces on this board, and yeah, very slow start. I think that's the key, and that's a viable strategy, right? In must-win situations, you either go really direct, or you just keep calm and prolong the tension and wait for your chance to appear later. What do you make of this? Do you think it's a good choice from Jan?
a very viable choice, especially facing the Berlin. You don't want to go into those early end games. You want to keep your chances alive. So anti-Berlin by Jan Nepomniachtchi. Also, just a quick reminder, in the first event, the Chessable Masters, Jan was playing against Hospim in round 1 in our quarterfinals bracket and was knocked down to the elimination bracket on day 1 of the playoffs. So definitely those nightmarish situations. You've got to forget all that, but will the curse of round 1 continue here for Jan Nepomniachtchi? He has to win to take it into Armageddon. To me, this position just looks like game on, David. It's even, it's balanced. Denis has managed to get both knights on the king side, so eyeing that f4 square, eyeing ideas of knight h5, knight f4 coming in. Meanwhile, Jan grabs the bishop, so the first imbalanced of the game is on the board.
That's right. We've talked about the bishop pair a lot today, but it is a knight for bishop exchange. Black's pawn structure on the queen side as well, slightly less flexible now that they are doubled. That being said, it's all about a fight for the center. Normally when you have the bishop pair, you're happy to take a slow kind of maneuvering approach. As the side without the bishop pair, you normally want to accelerate the play. So watch out for Denis Lazavik in the near future to play a move like pawn to d5. Also in a situation where a draw is enough, it's nice to simplify things. It makes you feel a bit calmer. You know your plan, no more kind of mysterious maneuvers. I do think Denis is going to be happy with this position. I've got a lot of experience myself on the black side, and you tend to be very solid. But then again, this is Jan Nepomniachtchi. We talked about the candidates prep, Tanya. We all know the Spanish opening is his favorite. He uses it in all of the candidates tournaments. So yeah, maybe he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. Maybe he's studied this before, and therefore will know exactly what needs to be done in this situation.
And we did see him with a brilliant win in the candidates against Vidit in a Berlin endgame. This time it's no endgame, it's full middle game on the board. And the center break that you were pointing out, Denis gets in first. D5, after pawn takes pawn, the E5 pawn feels a bit tender. David, are there ideas of a pawn sacrifice, or are you expecting Denis to recapture with the queen?
Yeah, if it was anyone else, I might think pawn sacrifice, but Denis is reluctant. He's loath to sacrifice pawns. He's got that positional style that we talked about. And queen takes, normally don't try it at home. We don't recommend bringing the queen out too early, but the queen cannot be hit by a piece. That's the most important thing. So the queen for now is quite well placed. I expect the black rooks to centralize in the near future. And you don't even need to calculate too much. There we go, rook to d8. I was talking about Jan and his opening prep, but I think Denis should be happy here, Tanya. No weaknesses in the black position. He looks totally fine, to say the least.
I completely agree with you. And I think what we've seen in this match so far, the opening prep has definitely not worked out for Jan. In game 1, a quick loss, busted out of the opening. In this one, at least so far, it looks like Denis has survived any opening questions, gets out of it, a level position. Right now, the first question being asked by Jan, how do you respond in the center? David, as Denis takes a decision, should we just zoom out and check into our other remaining match, as Alireza is also fighting for his life in the winner's bracket?
Let's do just that. And here we see the bird's eye view. And we missed those two other boards, but we're left with 2 fights, which is nice. And it is a relatively interesting battle. I was going to say it's the Dutch defense here, Tanya. And what do you make of the early stages of that one? Quite unorthodox. It's really rare to see the Dutch at the top level these days.
I think the reason for that is the math situation. For Alireza, he has to take some drastic steps, and he decides step 1 would be get a Dutch on the board with d4, f5. Also, his last decision there, pushing the pawns, ambitious play on the king side, going for the bishop pair there with the move knight h5. But to me, it feels so committal when you haven't finished your development yet. You leave behind so many squares with every pawn move, and we've seen that strategy backfire so many times.
Yeah, you're right. This is high risk type of chess here. Unclear what the reward is, apart from the bishop pair potentially by snapping that bishop off, which he just does there, Firouzja. I mean, I fear a quick knockout. I'm going to say it. Firouzja here, he just doesn't care about king safety ever. But in this type of position, you really need to be aware that your king, we talked about that dilemma, can never really castle kingside now because your opponent has the open H file. It's really kind of unlikely possibility. Castling on the long side looks like it's going to take an age. You need to get your queen out the way, but more importantly, this problem child of the family, the bishop. How are you ever getting that piece active? Yeah, the bishop pair is one thing, but I'm already thinking Duda might be trying to line up g4 in the air at some point, some bishop checks. Am I being too biased here, Tanya? I'm only seeing the positives for white. What do you see in black's favor?
I agree with every single thing that you've just said. It just feels that White's got so much more harmony, and I love what you pointed out. Opening up that light squared bishop with a move like g4 is an idea that Alireza will have to watch out for. But I think this is the kind of position where your best chance lies. Just a mess on the board, a chaos early on is the Alireza sharp position. Right now, you can't just do that first trades on d5. You can't pick it up with the e pawn. The f pawn would be extremely weak. And I'm actually expecting g4 at some point to arrive on the board. Can you go for it directly? Is it too early to play g4? Bullet game? I'd make the move in less than a second.
Yeah, you can tell on the camera, right? Duda was kind of using every ounce of self-control, Tanya. I loved it. Just g4 for the score, capture. There was a check, but I guess the black king would have just moved to e7 and white would have been a pawn down temporarily. Still tempting, but now that possibility far less likely. The black king will actually slide its way over to the g7 square. So I'm not going to eat my words yet. I still believe white's position is preferable, but black might have survived any immediate storm brewing on the king side. And Jan Krzysztof Duda does need a plan of attack. The knights are somewhat stifled right now, so you definitely need something productive up your sleeve. A3. I don't know about you, Tanya. Is this a bit tentative from Duda? Is he playing the match situation a bit too much, playing it safe? Looks really slow what he's doing.
But also, there are no weaknesses in White's camp right now. Black's got a bishop pair, but it's not an open position. That light squared bishop on c8, I really don't see a future for it anytime soon. It feels that Duda does have enough time to make small moves, which give him bigger gains later on. Just taking this b4 square, maybe you're eyeing an idea eventually of the b pawn moving forward, but I think it more or less just tries to keep bishop b4 check under control so far. I can see moves like queen c2. The big decision for white is going to be, what do you do with that king on e1? Because the rook on h1 is nicely placed on the h file. Duda there going for queen d2, but is he going to go shah castle? Because the rook from h1 without having made a single move feels like it's already developed in the game.
Yeah, you're right. That's always the eternal dilemma. Once you've got this pawn structure, they always say capture towards the center. H takes g3 was automatic earlier, opening up the white rook. But yeah, sometimes you get too kind of caught up, or at least I have in my career, I get caught up with a rook on h1 going for the attack when actually the white king just needs to step out the way. Connect the rooks tends to be the key. So castling, I think, at some point, reluctantly, might be necessary. But yeah, your point, Tanya, is really important. It's kind of a dilemma for the long term. At some point, he'll need to decide, and he will need to make that decision maybe in the next few moves. What else to do? Yeah, what would you say here? Firouzja, happy in a must-win situation?
Oof. I think so. I think with the black pieces, a game you have to win on demand, this is the kind of opening outcome that you're looking for, even if objectively you're slightly worse in this position. And Dev Albar seems to say that it is pretty balanced. He does have an extra minute on the clock, and I think this is the kind of game that those extra seconds at the end when critical decisions are made will be so important. Eventually, Jan Krzysztof Duda does line up the queen and the rook on the c file, but also targets that king on g7. Ideas of knight e5, maybe e4 at some point, breaking open the center. So sort of a multi-purpose square for that move, the queen on c3 there, David. One thing that I would be terrified about going shot castle, connecting the rooks is maybe go Alireza style, h pawn, Alireza style, alpha 0 style, h5, h4. You got to start thinking about the attack then.
Yeah, I think it's a case of not showing your hand too early. You just don't want to tell the opponent your real intentions. The longer you delay castling, the less likely is that black will attack on that flank. I 100% agree, Tanya. And therefore, I think Firouzja should stay flexible. Maybe a move like queen f6, block that diagonal you mentioned, cover the e5 outpost for the white knight. And kind of just the guessing game. It's like, what are you doing? I'm not sure. What am I doing? I'm not sure either. But just tiptoe around, and eventually the position, it always explodes in the end, right? Especially these two types of players. It always gets explosive eventually. What do you say? This is the calm before the storm? Should we go back to the other game maybe?
It does feel like that this is going to explode at some point. Not just yet. It's the deep breath before taking the big plunge. Knight f6 coming in. We might be seeing Alireza as well with the h-pawn moving forward. Meanwhile, things really under control in the other game, David. Let's do it just as you say. Let's pull up the big fight where Jan Nepomniachtchi has to score a win to take it to Armageddon. But look at that. Look at the control with which Denis Lazavik has played. Control on the clock, control in the position. It's an opposite color bishop. You're not even up a pawn in this. I don't see any chances for Jan here.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think his only chance is this optical illusion. It looks like the black bishop is super active, but actually it's just hitting thin air, and it won't be able to participate in the defense against this pawn advancing potentially, and also an attack against the black king. Black's king has one weakness inside, kind of around it. The white bishop will land on this outpost anchored by the d pawn, and it will attack the g7 pawn, and then the white queen comes. And then the white queen will step forward, either via b4, via a5. It's going to sneak in, and the black queen has to hold the fort herself. He's trying to do this by force. He's trying to force the draw here. Queen trade, Tanya. Game over. Match over. It's going to be a draw. Opposite color bishops. But can Jan keep the queens on? That's the big question.
Yeah, the queen trade is as good as resigning here. So you have to keep the queens on. You have to keep it connected to the b2 pawn as well, I assume. So queen f4 makes less sense to me in this position. Also, really to point out that queen f1 visually looks like a dangerous check, but actually white's king is super safe on h2 because that bishop on d3 really doesn't have a way to join the attack and put pressure on that tender g2 square because of the pawn structure that Jan has created. And that's so instructive. In an opposite color complex of the bishop, you keep your pawns on the squares of your opponent's bishops, restricting the movement. So f3, g2, h3 really controls black's light squared bishop activity.
Yeah, really instructive there, Tanya. And the perfect hiding spot for the white king has been created behind those pawns on that color complex. So I'm really wondering what Jan is hesitating about. I've been trying to use the time to kind of come up with an answer against queen b4. And the only thing I can think is queen to e3 check. That's a double attack, hitting the king, but also hitting David the d-pawn. Daryl the d-pawn, hitting this one. And if the white bishop were to ever block, maybe I'll just quickly show this on the board. If the white bishop were to block now, then suddenly there is this drawing motif potentially. A check, another check, and you can only block this with your bishop at the cost of the isolated pawn. So this is the issue for Jan. He wants to get active. If we go back to the game, he wants to get active with the white queen, but no clear path forward, and c3 is a bit of an ugly square. So what to do? Denis just always seems to have an answer. You're right.
That's a really great point. And if you don't have queen b4, queen f4 loses the b2 pawn. Queen c1, queen c3 hardly feels like a winning attempt by white, placing the queens on these inactive square. And if you've got a direct answer to a move like queen b4 or even queen a5, then you're doing really good as black. You've kind of solved all your problems very precisely, relying on calculation of the idea of queen e3 check instead of queen f1. And Jan Nepomniachtchi is hitting the 3-minute mark now. He's struggling to find a way to keep the game going.
Yeah, and I would be as well. I think Jan had not foreseen this small kind of bump in the road, this really annoying offer of the queen exchange he has to run. Should we make a guess, Tanya? Which square is it going to be? I'm going to say c1, but I have no idea. How do you keep the game going?
I'll predict that it will not be b4 because that just feels like you're walking into a perpetual and a draw immediately. It's got to be c1 or c3. It feels like the only two moves that keep the game going. You say c1, I'll take you on with queen c3.
Okay, deal. Queen c3 or queen c1 we're expecting. Jan looking off to the side. He's calculating a long variation. Whoa, he's traded queens?
Whoa!
Surely this is just a draw now. Oh my gosh.
This is nothing. You just fall back. You get your own king into the game. You could be a pawn down in this position. B7 pawn could not exist and you'd still be holding this. Also notice how now the white king is stuck to guarding the king side pawns because bishop f1 would be a threat to deal with. Bishop b5. So Jan, at least for the time being, stops that black king from going too far ahead, putting pressure on g7. You can just go g5. Try and trade off as many pawns as possible.
I agree. Bring the king also looks good. White's only hope now is on the fact that the d-pawn will paralyze one of the two black pieces. The white d-pawn will force either the black king or the black bishop to sit and blockade against it. But it's the theory of two weaknesses. You also need something else to chew on. So maybe it's the fact that this bishop is hitting g7. Yeah, I guess there's still some chances, especially if you can put the pawns on dark squares, Tanya, and then release the white king. You mentioned the white king was tied down. If the white king comes in, maybe there's some hope. So I do understand what he's gone for, even if it goes against everything we're taught of opposite color bishop games.
Do you play g5 here or not as black?
I do. Partly because you said it and I trust your judgment here, but also partly because you mentioned that point. keep the pawns on light squares.
Yeah, I think, and that's the point, right? At some point, you're also trying to get in h5, g4. Also, maybe just free up that g pawn with g6 at some point. But the point is that with g5, you place your pawns on dark squares, and that's such a big committal decision as well to make. So you would be a bit terrified playing the move g5 because you give a little something to your opponent there.
Definitely. You give a little, you get a little in return. He does play g5.
Oh, he goes for it.
Good judgment, Denis Lazavik. Such a good endgame player for someone so young. And whoa, Jan instantly blocks Tanya on the light squares. But now there's always a target. Now the h3 pawn might just drop off in the future. I'm surprised he decided so quickly.
Do you go g6, h5 here?
Oof. I think tough question, Tanya.
He does it.
You're the new prophet. You're the new prophet. I'm glad that Denis answered that question instead of me. I think you needed to.
You just want to, you just want to trade off as many pawns as possible, David.
Exactly. The pawn was a target on g7. Now the black king might be free to start moving across at some point, especially after h5. Oh, but bishop d6. Surely now, Tanya, you can play pawn to c3, and if it's captured, you can go back. Bishop takes and bishop takes. Jan might have missed this. He looks away.
He finds it. David, what a spot by you and what a spot by Denis and Jan reacts. Because this is over now. There's nothing to play for once the d pawn falls, and you can see it on Jan Nepomniachtchi. He knows he's going down to the loser's bracket.
Yeah, one move and the winning chances dissipate, but ultimately it was a drawn position anyway. This idea was actually in the air the last few moves. I wanted this kind of to happen. I wanted to make it happen a few turns ago, so really surprising it wasn't on Jan's radar. Jan just not quite at his best today. Nothing wrong with this game. It's just a really high quality game. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 99% accuracy each, but ultimately Jan undone by his inability to hold with black. And yeah, bishop to c4, bishop takes d5, that pass pawn disappears. And like you say, Tanya, nothing to talk about. This one is over. Jan just frustrated here. You can see it on the camera.
And a lot of it, I think, David, you mentioned it earlier as well, does feel self-inflicted today by Jan himself, especially that game one and decisions that were taken at that point. And there we see trades are happening. You can see it on Jan's face. You don't even need to look at the board. With the trade of the c pawn for the d pawn, this is all over. I was saying you can just even give up the h6 pawn, but you don't need to because you go in with g5, hitting the bishop with a tempo. Bishop takes pawn. I'm actually expecting a draw for next.
Yeah, I think this one you called it, Tanya, we can bank on it being a draw. Congratulations to Denis Lazavik, who wins the match. But I'm going to take us straight over to the other clash because just as we jump, double exclamation point. Firouzja striking back. Duda leans back. He's blundered. He has missed this knight jump. The whole idea is to open up the white king. Pawn takes knight. The black queen moves with a check. And then the white queen drops. Duda's blundered his queen in one move.
And it took me 30 seconds to realize that white's queen is hanging on c3. And the whole point is that your queen is hanging on e5. You want to move away with the check. David, can you avoid it with a move like king to g1 or sidestep with the king? He doesn't.
He just resigns.
It's over. Jan Duda resigns. Alireza Firouzja strike back and levels the score with 2-2. This one goes into the Armageddon. David, at some point, you've got to break down that final position for us.
I will do. We will show the final stages of this game, but look at that emotion from Jan-Krzysztof Duda. He looks devastated. That was a very sudden turnaround. We'll break down the last few moves, but Firouzja, he lived life on the edge in the previous game and now he's struck back. That is the sign of a true top-class player.
With his back against the wall, taking some big decisions with the opening, ambitious play that could have backfired, but it was an Alireza kind of position. And in the end, a trick made it all happen. Jan-Krzysztof Duda now has to do it all over again in the Armageddon. Alireza Firouzja, again, David, has the momentum moved to Alireza with that win, the final game win.
Surely now it feels that way. When you win with the black pieces, you feel like you're on top of the world. You feel like you're invincible. And especially having been down in that match the whole time, Firouzja, to strike back right at the end with such a cool tactic. Yeah, I think he's the favorite now. It's going to be tough for Duda to recover psychologically. Wow.
But he's got to do it, and he's got to do it fast, as the Armageddon will be coming up really soon, David. And it can be so frustrating knowing that you've done everything right. You had an advantage out of the opening and then missing that absolute trick in the end. David, you've got to take us through all the high points in that big win by Alireza, or should I call him Alireza?
Yeah, at this point, call him what you want, but that was a genius sacrifice, and we will break it down for you. We're going to jump in. We covered the opening stages of this game. It was the Dutch defense. It was really cagey. It was really blocked, a locked up position. Ultimately, neither king castled. The white king on f2 looks nice and safe behind a wall of pawns. Likewise, the black king, safe enough for now, but the position really exploded as we predicted it would. The last move by black, pawn to a5, asking the white queen a question. Here, Duda made a bit of a slip. He took the pawn on a5. Maybe the best was to capture on b7, and there's actually some x-ray tactics against the black king in the near future. This one would have become really, really complicated. Queen takes a5, however, not approved of by the computer because it allowed this move. Pawn to f4. Duda sheds the white king of its protection now. The white e-pawn is the key. Undermined now and forced to stay on the square, defending its knight on d4. But after a trade of pawns, the white knight destabilized. The knight drop back to c2 was forced, and yeah, Duda here just maybe reeling from the shock of having to retreat his pieces, losing coordination, allowed Alireza or Alireza to step forward with some tactics. Rook takes c3, I think a good move, despite the question mark here. Pawn to d4, and this is where it all fell apart. He'd missed this fork, first of all. He should have actually taken back with the white pawn, of course, to prevent this, but this wasn't what he'd missed. He'd seen d4, he thought he could counterattack, attacking the black queen here. The black queen, if we see a queen trade, white would be totally fine in that endgame, but the black queen can save itself with gain of tempo, hence a check. Tip for everyone at home, always look for those forcing moves, always look for those checks, captures, and threats. White is actually better unless Alireza finds this move. Knight to g4, check. Instant resignation here, double exclamation point, because, as we mentioned, pawn takes knight, allows the white, black queen to save itself with tempo, and the white queen drops. If the other move, king dropping back, for example, then simply pawn takes queen, and not just was the knight checking, it was also defending the e5 square. Alireza won, and now has the chance in Armageddon to go the whole way and finish his comeback.
So sharp, so tricky. That's some tactical sorcery right there by Alireza Firouzja. And we're so excited because there's more magic as AnyChess brings you a magical new way to play chess. It is spell chess mechanics. Modify the offensive, the defensive, the strategic dynamics of the game, adding layers to your gameplay that will change how you see chess entirely. Dive into spell chess puzzles and prepare for epic PvP battles with your friends. To try your hand at AnyChess today, use the command AnyChess in chat or head to go.chess.com/AnyChess to play. And we've got more chess wizardry coming our way as we've got an Armageddon right after this break, and it will be between Alireza Firouzja and Jan Krzysztof Duda. But during the break, we've got some very fun content with you as Magnus Carlsen answers some questions from our community. And when we're back, it's going to be the big Armageddon bids and the climactic end to the match between Duda and Firouzja. Don't go anywhere.
So Magnus, these are some questions from the Chess.com community. Question from Haughty Harry 09. When you visualize a chessboard, is it 2D or 3D? What colors are the pieces? And are you looking down on the board or is it up against a wall? Figuratively, of course.
I think the board is up because I'm like looking up a bit usually. I would say the board is 3D, it's kind of floating a bit, and there aren't really any colors.
This next question is from Litzak. How long do you intend to play competitively, and do you find enjoyment in it anymore? Or do the young generation with all their computer lines make it less enjoyable these days?
I think it's no secret that I don't particularly enjoy all the reliance we have on computer preparation these days. But I'll definitely continue to play competitively, at least for a few more years.
Question from Gumbo Stew. Which do you consider to be the most risky opening, and have you played it in competition?
It's a very difficult question. If we're going to talk about risky openings, I think we have to talk about openings that are actually like good but risky. The first thing that comes to my mind is the Najdorf Sicilian. I find it fascinating but also frightening because it involves quite a bit of risk.
And this next question is from Nightly Blunder. Who is the most overrated chess streamer or player right now, and or of all time?
Yeah, I don't want to shame anybody.
Okay, this next one is from Opside. Magnus, what was your first opening?
I think the first opening that I learned was the Dragon Sicilian, because we had a book at home. My dad had, I think, he'd won a book at a tournament sometimes. I think that was the first opening book that I read, so that's the first opening that I learned.
A question from Put Short. What will a post-chess Magnus life look like?
I think post-chess I will have family, friends, hobbies. I think I'll be quite happy.
And finally, Not a Time Lord 21 asks, Magnus, how much do you hate the London system on a scale of 1 to 1,000?
2, maybe? I mean, I like the London system. I think I totally get why people don't like the London system. It's really can be frustrating that people can set up the same way as whites every time and get a reasonable position regardless of how you play as black. But the London system is much richer than people think. And I first really learned about that from Kramnik in 2015 when he started to play it. He played against me in a bunch of training games before the World Rapid and Blitz in Berlin in 2015. So I kind of realized that he actually studied this, and this was a serious opening. So I like the London system. It's been almost analyzed to death now, I feel, but it's a surprisingly rich and quite good opening.
Yeah, thank you, Magnus.
Welcome to the most exciting format in chess, Armageddon. The ultimate tiebreaker. Armageddon grants white more time on the clock, but in return, white must win. A draw secures black the match win. White starts with 10 minutes, and each player submits a confidential bid with an amount of time they are willing to start with. Lowest bid gets to choose their color, usually black, and those coveted draw odds. Let the Armageddon commence.
It is the ultimate showdown between these two masters of chaos as Jan Christoph Duda and Alireza. Firouzja's fate will be decided with the Armageddon, and we've got the bids in. Jan Christoph Duda bids at 18 minutes 19 seconds, loses the bid to Alireza Firouzja at 7 minutes 55 seconds. Alireza will pick the black pieces. David, what do you make of that bid? 7 minutes 55 seconds, starts with black, gets the result odds. Is that going to be enough time?
Wow, I tend to say that around 8 minutes is the perfect. That's the kind of the balance, the magic number. He's gone below. He won just about Alireza Firouzja, but I don't know, Tanya. I've seen some Armageddons. I know how fast Duda can be. I think that is a risky strategy. He's coming off the high though of having won with the black pieces in the previous game, so I guess that's the rationale for this decision. What's your prediction? Who's going to take it, Duda or Firouzja?
Oof, tough one. It's going to be a spicy one. That's my prediction for Jan Christoph Duda. He has to win on demand, and look at the opening of choice here. He starts with bishop c4 and queen f3. Do we have two of the top grandmasters playing, or what are we watching right now?
Wow, it almost looks like he's going for scholar's mate. Did he not see there's a knight on f6? Does he not realize that Firouzja was probably taught this in kindergarten? Queen on f3. Yeah, definitely don't try this one at home, Tanya. Yeah, what are we watching? What's even the name of this opening?
I'm not sure. I mean, if we didn't know that it's Duda versus Alireza and you were given this opening, I think few would predict that these are players over 2,000 playing. This is not something you get to see at top level chess, but it's slowly getting into some more normal territory there. The pieces are developed. We see that knight on e2 controlling a key d4 square, and at least Duda's making his intentions clear, right? He has to win. There's no other path for him. He's taken Alireza out of theory, but knight d4 arrives any which way.
Yeah, and the pawn structure has been changed. That's the thing about modern chess, modern computers. They've shown everything's possible. Main line of the Queen's Gambit is all equal anyway. You might as well play a position like this, which is a bit weird. It's a bit wonderful, but it's also just equal chances for both sides. And okay, big threat on the board, trying to trap this white bishop. Okay, the black pawn advancing to a4 had to be stopped, so white does likewise. And yeah, what's the conclusion? I mean, I guess all knights off the board now. It's all about the bishops, queens, rooks. Who would you take here, Tanya?
And the pawns, David. I think it's all about the pawn structure. Clearly, for white, you've got a more free flow on the king side. Look at that. We see more trades happen, but very importantly, Jan Christoph Duda keeps the control on the clock. The d4, it's all about the formation here, the pawn formation, the imbalance. I'm expecting the f pawn to move forward next, try to get some play, and that's been stopped. Maybe f4 regardless, because Jan Christoph Duda has to find a way to create some chaos here.
He does, and he will be left with a slightly superior bishop. So whether he takes now with his own bishop or whether he takes with a rook, maybe he even flicks in a queen check on e6. But yeah, the white bishop on f4 will control, short term at least, its counterpart on e7. It's the better piece. Like you said, that pawn on d4. I know you weren't expecting, you mentioned that square was covered. You weren't expecting the knight to jump in, and it is a weak pawn. After all, active pieces for Duda. I think a small advantage. It should be manageable for black. But the time differential as well, still around the 2-minute mark. Duda's doing everything right so far. He's maintained his time edge, and he's got a fully playable position. Rook f6, I'm expecting the queen to drop back in this direction, just to eye up that pawn you mentioned. Okay, it goes back to b3 instead, eyeing a different pawn.
Also makes a lot of sense. It's not only eyeing the queen side. Watch out for that king on h8. The queen on b3 takes away a lot of squares on g8. I'm also imagining a potential doubling up on the f file, trying to create some attack against that black king, a far off future, but it's not off the cards. Ideas like rook f3, rook f1, and a rook trade being offered first, and bishop d2, a nice square, because you tie down that black rook on a8 from doubling up on a rook f8 because the a5 pawn is tender.
Yeah, I'm really surprised this move was given a question mark. It looked really natural to me. Maybe there was something better, maybe something a bit more productive. Maybe doubling up first, because a trade of rooks might alleviate black's the pressure on black's position. But I'm still expecting him to trade and then kind of replace the current rook with the one still stuck at home, queen c4 instead. Quick decisions, Tanya. It feels like they're playing so fast, just pure instinct right now. Firouzja not even calculating, making the black pawn structure ugly and already stuck on the dart squares. But do you think it's holdable? is White's advantage enough in a must-win situation?
I'm liking White's position a lot. It looks like you've got all the trumps, right? All these light square weaknesses where the queen can penetrate and start attacking the pawns on the dark squares. The bishop on d2 still ties down that black rook on a8. Meanwhile, where is black's activity? The bishop on f6 is behind its own pawns. It's like a big pawn right now in the position. No targets at all. And even though Alireza needs only a draw and the position, the material is balanced, I think this is big advantage to Jan Krzysztof Duda in practical terms. Moves come easy. And David, the clock in the Armageddon is not the 17th piece. It's piece number 1.
Yeah, clock is key. The clock is king. And I saw Duda just widen his eyes as if this last move was surprising. I thought king h7 was forced. There was actually an idea of bishop takes h6, undermining a pawn because the black bishop was hanging. So queen to d5 and rook e8. Notice how this pawn on a4 also hanging. So if white bishop gets greedy and takes on a5, chaos would be unleashed. A lot would happen there. So rook e8 is aimed at evicting the white queen. Tanya, you spotted some tactics.
Not tactics, but I think what was missed by Jan Krzysztof Duda is that now Alireza manages to free up his pieces. The next move will be b6, defending that a5 pawn. Let's say white plays b3, controlling the a4 square. You could start with b6, you could start with rook e5. Whoa!
No.
Queen h5!
Sacrifice.
He wants to go queen h5, David!
He wants to. It's an exchange sacrifice. He's going to win this pawn on h6 in front of the queen because the black queen cannot go and defend. It has to defend its rook. But is it enough? You're the exchange down. Yes, you might get a pawn. It might just be a couple of checks, though. The black rook moves. You do get 2 pawns, actually, now for the exchange sacrifice. But I don't know, Tanya. It feels like the most you might get later on is a perpetual check, a repetition of the position. And that's not enough in Armageddon. Whoa, queen g4 though, the blue arrow makes an appearance. The computer thinks that's by far black's best move. I'm going to say, Tanya, that's not easy, going on the counterattack against the white king, trying to sneak behind. Do you think he's going to find it?
David, the big question is that the only move in the position? For example, another natural looking move like queen e7 comes to mind. You want to try to trade off the queens if you can as well. But queen g4, allowing white to even pick up another pawn, giving checks on d8. But knowing Alireza, he loves activity and he finds it. It is so up Alireza's alley. He's not looking for any queen trades. He's going to give a check on d1. So watch out, Duda. He's got to parry that threat right now. Queen d1 in the air.
He's got to parry it, as you say, and there's actually no good way to do that other than retreating the white queen. And that's a really sad move to have to make. Really feels counterintuitive. Just like you said with Firouzja, always finding the active solution. That's the remedy we're often taught in a position. If you're not sure how to coordinate your pieces, go active. Just play on the front foot. Defending passively rarely works out. But unfortunately here for Duda, defending passively is the name of the game. And he does find the best move. Oh, these players are so good. You can tell they're bang in form, both of them, finding the accurate way every single time. Tanya, who would you take in this position?
I am so impressed with the way the evaluation bar seems to approve of the sacrifice. David, we were both not convinced by giving up that exchange for that pawn, but it seems like white still has the edge. And with the clock situation, it's looking like advantage Duda. If he can keep the pressure up, moves like h3, trying to kick out the queen come to mind. It's not easy, but I have a feeling that Duda knows what he's doing. How do you think he's evaluating his chances in this position?
I think he's just calculating, knowing Armageddon, knowing the nature and the speed that's required. I don't think there's time to even start philosophizing about whether that was a mistake, whether he should have sacrificed. I think it's just pure calculation. Both the players actually mirroring each other on the camera there. He plays bishop to f4. I was actually expecting him to take this pawn, be a bit greedy, but he tries to coordinate instead. Very natural.
I just realized that h3 was a big blunder because you just walk into rook takes pawn, so you don't have the option of actually creating a king left just yet.
Yeah, you've got to be really, really careful. There is a pin on the g file, as you mentioned. So bishop f4. Not sure what I'm expecting from black. Either you drop back a piece, maybe the queen to defend this pawn. You can maybe play d5, but it does feel a bit loose. Yeah, I'm expecting him to go for your plan at some point though, Tanya. King h1 and then h3, just to give the white king a bit of breathing space. But yeah, the clock time's still in Duda's favor. That might be the decisive role. This game is no guarantee that it's going to finish anytime soon. The longer he can keep it going, the longer he'll remain a favorite here. I've got to say, I'm picking Duda. I think that exchange sacrifice, fortune favors the brave.
That was a gutsy decision. In a must-win position, just playing for compensation. It's not a clear attack that you have against the king. It's not like you have too many pieces to build the initiative. But Duda just had a feeling, this incredible feeling, like it will be enough picking up these 2 pawns, and he continues to play, continues to put pressure, realizing it's far more difficult for Alireza to hold this position, and it's also not the kind of position that Alireza likes to defend.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would like to defend this position, but as you mentioned, least of all Alireza, who wants to be active. Note how the black pieces have been forced to beat at the retreat here. The black queen dropping back, the black rook dropping back, and dude, the blue arrow made an appearance. D5 was tough. Duda here, he can keep the game going. He can just put a pawn on G3, put a king on H2, and black will have no way in. White's pretty much dominated his half of the board, controlled every entry point, and the game will be guaranteed to go on at least another 50 moves. So with the clock in mind, I think I would elect G3. He might be looking at some other checks though. Queen G3 check, Queen G4 check. Duda's much more actively inclined than most of us. So okay, that was him, I believe, not me. Queen G4 check has been played, just as I mentioned it. And he might be aiming to go in and behind Tanya. Really ambitious stuff here from Duda.
And that's absolutely key, right? Just keep the game going. Bring your opponent down to seconds. There is no increment. And right now it is 3 minutes for Alireza. He needs only a draw, but there is no clear path to safety to trades in this position. And David, I think even if the queens were to get traded at any point, the 2 extra pawns gives white enough chances to continue the game. Queen C8 check is always in the air. Right now he just defends that bishop on F4. Look at the way there are no lines for entry for black's major pieces. The queen and the rook struggling to get inside Duda's camp.
Yeah, this last move for everyone at home, really instructive. Pawn to G3, as you say, locking down all the files. A rook is only better than a bishop if it can actually use the open lines, and Duda just locking things there. Firouzja shaking his head meanwhile. Look at the clock, he's still over 2 minutes down. I think the gamble, the Armageddon bid, hasn't paid off here. Maybe after rook takes f6, that sacrifice we were so shocked by, he needed a bit more time to find his bearings. Pawn to b6, and I mean, it might be time to start pushing these pawns. King to g2, very safe instead, Tanya. This is so impressive from Duda.
Just so impressive. Rook takes bishop. I'm still thinking about that sacrifice. So easy to miss. Just incredible feel there for the position by Duda. You can push that h pawn to h4, and look at how beautifully every piece will be guarded. Every pawn will be guarded. How is black creating threats? You can go in with a check on c8. But after you give that check, the only thing you need to watch out for is the pin along the g file. Don't leave your pieces hanging.
Yeah, don't leave your pieces hanging. There is the possibility of giving a check, maybe another check if the king moves, and then taking this pawn. You mentioned endgames favoring white. I think you might be able to head into an endgame, and he actually tries to get the queens off in this manner. If the queens disappear, then white will be left with 3 connected pass pawns on the king side. That would be over immediately. Has Duda found the key to the position here, Tanya? Looks like he's getting closer.
Look at the understanding. David, it's at another level. You would want to trade queens by picking up an extra pawn, but he realizes he wants to get those 3 connected passes, and that's more important than picking up one of the double D pawns that Alireza has. Rook F7 exchange denied there. Queen to D5, now threatening in with bishop takes D6 coming in with a check. Incredible play by Jan Krzysztof Duda. This is a masterpiece, David, by him.
Positional masterpiece, strategically just dominating his opponent. We saw Firouzja lean back in his chair, exhale. I don't think I've seen Firouzja this dejected and frustrated in rapid chess and blitz chess, maybe ever. He normally feels confident that he'll find some counter chances or some tricks, but here black is literally so passive. Rook to d7, slowly but surely the white pawns inch forward, and yeah, Tanya, I think you called it masterclass so far from Duda. He just needs to put the finishing touches on, but he also has nearly 3 extra minutes now. Firouzja, with 1 minute left on the clock, no increment. I don't think you survive this. Probably don't survive with 1 hour on your clock. That's how bad it is for black right now. White can do anything.
Stunning stuff by Duda, starting with that move, rook takes bishop. And I saw the feature chat there, full confidence. We can see it on our camera as well. H5 on the board. That pawn is going to go to that H6 square as well. And look at the coordination between all of white's pieces, tying down Alireza's queen and the rook to defend the D6 pawn. I don't believe he's going to trade anymore. Queen G5 comes in with a check. Do you go H6 as well? Put that pawn on H6.
Yeah, it's so tempting. I mean, there's many viable strategies here. Maybe he'll even just grab another pawn, grab a third pawn. There we go. Bishop takes d6. And wow,
Whoa!
checkmate. Queen h7. There was queen f8 at the end. Firouzja blunders, but it was over anyway. Duda takes the win. Incredible, Tanya.
Alireza Firouzja walks into a mate of one, but it wasn't about the final position. What an Armageddon played by the Polish Grandmaster Jan Krzysztof Duda after the setback in Game 4 comes with a power-packed performance, takes it away. Rook takes bishop, a sacrifice for the ages, playing just for the momentum, and Alireza Firouzja could not keep it under control. It will be Jan Krzysztof Duda who advances to the winners semifinals. What a day of chess this has been, David. And look at our scoreline, and what an Armageddon we were treated to.
What an Armageddon. It's been breathless action, almost unstoppable, or just no time to take a pause there. And I just wanted to recap the last stages, or the key stages of that wonderful Armageddon. We talked about the masterclass from Duda, and it all started here in this position. Most mere mortals would say white has a small advantage. White can just take a slow approach here, small edge, pawn to b3, for example. But instead, Duda, in his nature, sacrificing, always looking for the active choice, always playing on the front foot. Rook takes f6, not approved of by the computer, but in human terms, a real shock, especially in Armageddon when the opponent has no time. After pawn takes f6, the idea was queen to h5, sliding across, attacking this pawn, keeping an eye on the black rook as well, meaning that the black queen is tied down. And actually here was potentially the decisive mistake already. Firouzja failing to recover. What he should have done was defend not this pawn, which is indefensible right now, but the other pawn that dropped in a moment, the pawn on f6, which is also undefended. Queen to e6, for example, might have held the balance. After queen takes pawn, it looks deadly, it looks scary, fatal almost for the black king, but there's no way to track it down. There's no way yet to coordinate the white bishop and the white queen with a checkmating attack. This would have held the balance. Instead, the mistake was rook to e5, neglecting the fact that the f6 pawn was under threat, and with a check, taking one pawn first and another capture now, we saw that white was in full control. Queen g4, the only move found by Firouzja, but how he closed the door here, Duda, was the most impressive. Attack first of all, now defense. Queen to f1, sliding back, and coordinating his pieces after bishop to f4, sliding forward with the queen. Slowly but surely, the white pieces coordinated. The black pawns eventually dropped. And if we fast forward to the final position, we were talking about Firouzja's clock. He had no time. He was dead lost anyway, but a final blunder, a final slip ended it. Queen to h7, trying to trade off queens, and Duda, the kiss of death. Queen to f8 check, the black king trapped. And with that, he got the result, he got the win, and moves on to the winners' semifinals.
Incredible stuff. That move rook takes bishop. David, that sacrifice didn't only shock us, I'm sure it shocked Alireza as well, and there was no coming back from their incredible technique after that, and that sees Jan Krzysztof Duda advance through to the winner semifinals. He will be playing against Vincent Keymer while Magnus Carlsen takes on Denis Lazavik. Jan Krzysztof Duda has been in scintillating form so far in the Chess.com Classic, taking down Dubov, taking down Levon, and now knocking down Alireza to the losers round one. But it's not over for these four players. They are on their last life. It will be Velimir Ivic taking on Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alireza Firouzja, Alexei Serrana. David, I'm getting nostalgic about the Chessable Masters. I'm getting recaps about it. It was Alireza and Jan who were knocked down in round one of the Chessable Masters as well. And then they found their way through all the way to the grand finals. So it's far from over, a lot to play for, and it's been so much excitement for all of us. And if you guys want to play some chess as well after being inspired by this play, we've got some big news for you, as Opera is the internet browser for chess enthusiasts. That's why you want to be bringing on your Chess.com games, your Chess.com integrations on both mobile and desktop. Opera guarantees that the chess community is only a tap away. It's free to download. Use the command chess browser in chat or visit go.chess.com/opera to take the Opera browser for a test ride. It's the first ever chess-themed browser in the world. So get your Opera browser, and what a day it's been, and it's not over. While we're away, definitely check out this very cool house tour from Magnus Carlsen. And we're gonna be back, and we're gonna be back with this guy on our screens. It's going to be an interview with the semi-finalist, Jan Shrishtov Duda. Leave your questions in chat. We'll see you after the break.
Hi. Welcome to my humble abode. Follow me. So we're here, we have the kitchen, clean as usual.
What's in the frame?
Yes, this is basically a gift from that I got for Christmas last year. It's simply cut out of the table when I was top of the Fantasy Premier League worldwide rankings in the good old days.
What's it like this year?
No, it's a little bit worse, but we'll get back, I'm sure. So if don't look at the TV, that shouldn't be there. It should be up on the wall. We haven't fixed that yet.
It's not a $1,000 chess set.
This board was bought at the local billiards shop because I realized at some point that I didn't actually have a chessboard. So I just needed to get one quickly, and it has. And so this is the board that I've been using for the last couple of years. Also, the clock isn't very good.
Can you show us your fridge?
Yes, sure. I am, of course, solely responsible for everything that's in here. It's a bit of everything. At the moment, it's been stripped a little bit. Like a couple of weeks ago, it was a lot fuller. And here there's a small freezer as well with some different goodies.
What do you usually eat when you're playing long tournaments?
You know, it's not that easy to eat a lot in between games, but sometimes I'll order something that I can eat quickly. Especially if I'm home alone, then I'll order something that I can eat quickly, like Thai or Chinese or something along that sort, and then I'll just use the 15 minutes in between games to eat as much as possible to get some energy.
Nice. So do you enjoy cooking?
No, but I enjoy helping with cooking. I can do the easy stuff like cutting the vegetables and then washing up afterwards. I'm pretty good at washing up, doing the dishes. That's something I'm good at. So that's what I'll do most of the time. So yeah, here's the bathroom where everything is clean. Blah blah blah. There was supposed to be somebody here. Actually, yesterday to set up everything, but once again here everything's a bit provisional.
Nice view though.
Yeah, it's a decent view. Not the best in this weather, obviously. But you got this roll up. Funnily, this book is still here in the window. It's one of Gary's books, not in his predecessors actually, but on himself. What happened was that when I was playing the St. Louis tournament online, the Fish Random one where Gary was playing, we had to have a secondary camera to show the rest of the room. And so I had my phone here filming. I needed it to be a bit higher, so my phone was standing here and just filming me while I was playing over here. And I thought it would be a bit of a funny prop to use the Gary book against Gary, but I don't think he was paying attention to that. Also, there's it can be a little bit dark in here, and the desk is a little bit too small. So there's some work to be done here, but I think. For the tour, the tournaments where I'll be playing from home, everything will be fine. But so far, it's a bit provisional.
Ready to take your chess to the next level? Now through May 15th, get 50% off any Diamond, Platinum, or Gold Chess.com premium membership. That's unlimited game review, unlimited puzzles, unlimited bots, unlimited lessons, and no ads, all at 50% off. Go to chess.com/special and enter code CCT24. Discount applied to first payment period only. Existing premium members are not eligible for this offer.
And we're back with the man of the moment with us. Joining us is Jan Christoph Duda after his scintillating win in the Armageddon against Alireza Firouzja. Duda, firstly, congratulations. It was a great match, a great fight. Did you enjoy it as much as we did?
Thank you. Not really. I mean, I think I played actually much better than him today, and probably should have been three games, to be honest. Of course, like playing this body with white in the fourth game was extremely annoying, and I'm extremely happy, that I managed to win this Armageddon and win the match.
What did you do between game 4 and the Armageddon? Just having a few minutes. How did you reset yourself?
Yeah, I tried not to get too negative, I mean, I was extremely annoyed, but on the other hand, I also kind of struggle with these situations. Must not lose with white. I mean, sounds so obvious that it gets tricky. Credit to Alireza, though, he played like very much improved, I think, this Dutch opening, and I mean, there was no easy way for me, to trade pieces, and I think objectively, but most importantly, practically, he had an upper hand in that game. But of course, there is like no reason to blunder in one move. I guess it's just tiredness, because in fact I'm combining both tournaments, Grand Chess Tour and Champions Chess Tour. So I think that's basically the reason. And also, I did a very, very stupid thing to look at the third game and learn that I could have won the bishop in one move. That didn't help either. So but happy with this Armageddon game again.
It was amazing to watch. We love the Armageddon. We love the fight. We love your and Alireza's style of play as well. And I want to just touch upon the Armageddon for a moment, because first you had this really interesting opening approach with white, where you played bishop c4, queen f3. But it was really this exchange sacrifice that you went for, and it, I think, not only shocked everyone watching, David and myself, but also Alireza. What was going on in your mind at that point when you took the bishop?
Well, actually, Levan Aroyan played yesterday's queen f3 against me. The idea is to get, the Vienna opening. I mean, I played knight a5 and d3, knight takes c4, d takes c4 to get this sort of structure when, I mean, there is a lot of play, yeah? In no time, there will be many exchanges. So I don't think white is particularly better, but you can maneuver and pretend you are wise. Then of course he played something else, bishop e7, and I just played random moves. First of all, I think he played too passively at some point. Like, he could have played bishop before check, I guess, and then d5, which normally he would do, I guess, if it wasn't for Armageddon. And because after this d6, bishop e6, it's probably not much, but white has slightly better position, like similar to some anti-marshal, like a3 knight c3 line. And I was kind of happy because I could play for a long time and still pretend to have a better bishop, better pawns and so on. Yeah, and this exchange sacrifice I actually liked the idea, because his rook is kind of passive. I mean, I'm blocking the F line, of course, and I mean, he doesn't have any play, I guess. So at least practically, it's like It's also like a cool thing to do, but that wasn't like the most important. Yeah, and after that, I mean, I could have won, like, I mean, positionally or flagging him, because I mean, it was like extremely unpleasant position for him, very passive. So, yeah, so I guess this queen f3 worked in the end.
Yeah, you made it work. We thought the exchange sacrifice was super cool, and then your technique and your conversion also seemed flawless to us. And today, Duda, you played 8 hours of chess. It's been a full day of chess. How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling relieved? What's going on? And how exhausting has today been?
Yeah, now I don't feel exhausted at all. No, right now I'm feeling very happy with myself that, as said, I managed to win this Armageddon. In general, I'm not healthy at all, so I kind of struggle both in Grand Chess Tour and in Champions Chess Tour. But in Champions Chess Tour, online somehow I crawless, I guess. Maybe also because in Grand Chess Tour, it's in Warsaw in Poland, so I want to be, like, I mean, I won this event once and got silver last year, so there are expectations. In Champions Chess Tour, there are no expectations at all, and maybe it's helping in a way, I guess. And yeah, because in Warsaw I struggle, but here, I mean, I play like kind of good, so I don't really understand, because it should be the other way around, I guess. Because I mean, these are the later games, so I should be more tired. But somehow psychologically, yeah, it's easier. So I'm also happy that in the first game my Wi-Fi didn't go south, because at some point I was disconnected. But I mean, everything is cool.
It's also actually we didn't know that your Wi-Fi got disconnected, but we're back. We're glad that you managed to get back into the game. It's so interesting what you said, because all 3 players who are playing in the Grand Chess Tour have actually advanced to the winners semi-final. So it seems instead of being exhausted, it kind of puts them in the rhythm of the game more.
Yeah, maybe. Like, it's difficult to say, yeah, because it's Magnus and Vincent. I mean, Magnus is winning, like most of the time, of course. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to say, actually. I mean, in Warsaw, there is this 25. I mean, there was technically, because tomorrow the beat starts. There was this 25 plus 10 increment time control, which felt kind of long to me. I mean, this 10 plus 2 is like very enjoyable. So maybe that's also part of the reason why we, play better.
That's really nice to hear that you're enjoying this format of 10 plus 2. And Duda, before we let you go, we've got some chat questions that we'd like you to answer. We know it's been a long day, but I'm going to bring those up. And the first one's by Kai HQ, and he wants to know, what openings do you hate?
It's a difficult question. Actually, I don't like having holes, in some positions. So, for example, I would feel very unhappy in this Sveshnikov, let's say, my line, with black, because of this d5, f5 squares. I understand it's, I mean, objectively sound, of course. And in fact, people are avoiding it with white by playing Rossolimo, bishop b5 in the third move. But still, it's, I mean, I wouldn't enjoy myself in in this structure. So I can say Sveshnikov opening. Maybe some Sicilians actually from black side that are kind of. I mean Kalashnikov also, yeah, it's kind of similar, let's say. Yeah, but in general I play kind of everything. So
We had this interview earlier where Magnus said he would give the London 2 out of 10. Would your range also be around that for the London?
It depends on the opponent, I guess. I mean, there are opponents against whom I occasionally play London, and I always get nowhere. Like I don't know what to do with white. Then it's annoying, and yeah, it works against you. But on the other hand, sometimes you get the sharp positions or like positional masterpieces. So you never know what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see some of the new modern theory in London as well. And we also have one more question from Shaki KQ. Sorry if I'm butchering the name, but he wants to know if you think that Chess 960, Fischer Random Chess, is more interesting than classical. Which one do you like more?
Well, it's definitely more interesting. The thing with chess, short chess Fischer Random Chess is that I haven't played in any official tournament, like over the board. I only played online. So I wish, one day I would play OTB. But yeah, in general, I like playing Chess 960. So yeah, because of course there is no theory and everyone is so happy that you can, be so creative and yeah, it's just about the creativity, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just fresh positions from the very first move. Fans love it, and we love to see you guys fight it out without all the opening theory. It's been a great day of chess, and just looking ahead, Duda, you play against Vincent tomorrow in the winners semifinals. Tell us about that. What do you think about that match, and how do you think it's going to play out?
Well, of course, no one knows what is going to happen. First of all, I have lost I don't know, maybe 5 games to Vincent, mostly because at some point we had some, let's say equal position, and then I would blow it in one move because of some overambition. And it also happened in Warsaw, by the way, 2 days ago. I played, we were playing on 10 seconds, and I played the move which felt very wrong in the first second, but I was hoping it would be a shocker for him, and he would go bananas after that. But I mean, I just spoiled my game with that, and somehow it's the pattern, it's against Vincent, so I guess I have to get rid of that and accept the draw. It's level position, but I mean, he's of course a very strong player, but yeah, it will be interesting match, I guess. Also, very different mentalities, like Polish and German, who couldn't find, bigger, bigger difference, I guess.
David and I were actually talking about this, at how you and Alireza feel like you guys have a similar style of play. With you and Vincent, it feels like we're going to be treated to a clash of styles, maybe. So it's going to be interesting to watch. We're really excited about it. Duda, finally, this has been quite a start for you in the play-ins, taking down Daniel Dubov, Lavon Aronian, and then today starting with a win against Alireza. It's your first time in the Champions Chess Tour Division 1. Do you think you can take it all the way?
I really don't think about it. I'm just, trying to play good chess and see what happens. I'm not even looking, for prizes, because it's there is no sense whatsoever in doing so. Yeah, just enjoying myself and being in Division 1, because it was very unexpected, to be honest. I think because for some reason I hadn't really played much before in this Champions Chess Tour with divisions format. I mean, on Chess.com, and actually maybe it's my second tournament ever. So yeah, and before I lost to MPL and I got knocked out to Division 2. And then also I didn't quite follow. I mean, didn't quite know the rules, So, so in the losers match, I didn't know there were 2 games, for instance. But in general, it's the system is too difficult. I can't really understand it. But yeah, of course, I'm enjoying playing big guys, and yeah, especially when you can play decent at times.
We love having you here, and we really enjoy your brand of chess. Duda, congratulations once again on your win today, and all the best against Vincent tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Get some rest.
Thank you.
Jan Krzysztof Duda, after a fantastic Armageddon and an entertaining match against Alireza, goes through in the winners semi-finals. Will be playing against Vincent Keymer. The other big matchup, Magnus Carlsen against Denis Lazavik in the winners semi-finals. David, what a day of chess this has been. What has been the highlight for you?
Wow, I mean, that Armageddon was one of the highlights in terms of just the high quality of chess. I'm impressed, I've got to say, Tanya, listening to that interview that you conducted there with Jan Krzysztof Duda, I mean, his enthusiasm for chess, his just boundless energy, playing the Grand Chess Tour, as he mentioned earlier, finding the energy to come here, fight it out over multiple games and Armageddon as well, and still with the same level of enthusiasm. I mean, also just all of those decisive games. Denis Lazavik played a fantastic match as well, and I can't wait to see how he fares tomorrow against Magnus Carlsen.
And David, in a format where you have to be so sharp and one mistake could mean just game over, you have to be quick, you have to be precise. And then we've got these three players who've had a full day of chess in Grand Chess Tour, and they go on to advance to the winners semi-final. How insane is that? When fatigue, energy, we have these conversations. What is the stuff these guys are made of?
It's crazy. This is modern chess. This is the new era. It was unthinkable just 10 years ago, maybe even less than that, that players would play 2 tournaments side to side and still be able to maintain this world-class level. But Magnus, Vincent, Jan Krzysztof, they're proving people wrong. They're showing that actually more is better. Getting practice, getting match fit, that's the key. So yeah, it's fantastic to see this dawn of the new age, Tanya.
We got to get to the gym. That's the secret, David. I mean, this is insane stuff to see. And then we've got 4 players on their final life, including Alireza, Firouzja, including Jan Nepomniachtchi. They'll be fighting in the losers bracket. What are you expecting from the big hitters tomorrow?
Well, they're experienced. They've been there. They've done it before. Like you said earlier, Alireza, Firouzja, he's risen through that losers bracket in the previous Champions Chess Tour event. Jan Nepomniachtchi, likewise, they're capable and they do have the second life. That's the beauty of this time format, of this tournament format even, that they're still given a second chance and we get treated to more of their games. So I can't complain.
It's been an awesome day of chess. I'm so inspired. I'm going to go get my workout in, then get some chess games in on Chess.com. What a day of chess it's been. The first day of division play has been thrilling, and we've got 5 days to go. Who will come out on top tomorrow? David Howell and I will be back on the call for winners semi-final and the losers bracket. It's been exceptional. We've had an amazing Armageddon as well. Thank you to all our viewers who stuck with us all the way through. See you tomorrow.